Out of the gates and ready to go. Hot Mic with Hudson with Row is underway on this Wednesday edition. Jam-packed show. Glad you're with us across the OutKick network. It includes YouTube, where you can search OutKick in the tab, and hope you'll subscribe to the channel. Join Chad in the chat and much more. Lou Holtz joins us in 20 minutes. The College Football Hall of Famer, legendary head coach at Notre Dame. He hops in 20 minutes. We'll talk Ohio State, Notre Dame, and a lot more across college football with the ball coach. We've got a primary complaint, as we do each and every Wednesday. Dr. David Chao, Pro Football Doc, is on. A lot of big-time injuries across the NFL currently, including Nick Chubb and more. Joe Burrow, we'll discuss those and the timetable for return. Saquon Barkley's not even ruled out yet for tomorrow night, Thursday Night Football, somehow, because Dayball says he's looking better and better, according to his latest presser and meeting with the media. Clay Travis, our fearless leader, each and every Wednesday in hour number 2. Plus Trent Dilfer, head coach at UAB, taking on the Georgia Bulldogs between the hedges. He will hop on. He's back on again for the first time in a few months. Always a great conversation. Chad, we are jam-packed, a big show. Can't wait.
Hutton, that is a lineup. That right there that you just ran through on this Wednesday is a hell of a lineup. Amazing job by our crew in here setting all of that up. Yep. I'm fired up and ready to go. Let's get over this hump. So many people talk about the hump on hump day and all of that good stuff. Let's just go ahead.
Well, you declared Thursday's the start of the weekend.
Are we declaring prima nocta on this Wednesday show?
Yeah, that's
because when I hear declare, I think of prima nocta from Braveheart. Look it up. We're declaring prima nocta on this show with that lineup. It's going to be one heck of a day. We're going to have one heck of a show. We're going to get you home, and we're going to get you ready for what's the new start of the weekend, Hutton, that I declared
Thursday,
last week?
Because football begins Thursday.
We're declaring prima nocta. We're declaring Thursday the start of the weekend. So welcome to Thursday night, everyone, because that's how quick this show is going to go. It's going to feel like Thursday night tonight. We're getting closer to the weekend. I'm fired up for this lineup today.
Speaking of lineups, the lineup for Colorado with the celebrities, the former players, lengthy, that have backed Coach Prime and the Colorado Buffaloes. And most recently, it's with Tom Brady, the GOAT, and the Let's Go podcast. That's where we lead off things with our headlines today. Scorched Earth on Hot Mic. Chad, Tom Brady has been texting and discussing football with Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur mentions this in a post-game of the overtime victory over Colorado State, where he says, hey, I had to go into Brady mode. You know, I had to think back to what he's told me and what he wants me to work on and what he would be doing in that moment, where the best rise to the occasion, and Shedeur certainly did that. And Deion and Shedeur were guests of the Let's Go podcast with Brady. It's his podcast that's also with Jim Gray, and a variety of topics they dove into. But the one that is circulating, and rightfully so, is Shedeur Sanders has purchased a Rolls Royce. And Deion asked Brady in a back-and-forth conversation towards the end of the visit about if Brady agreed or disagreed that a college kid should have a Phantom or a Rolls Royce. And Shedeur jumped in before Brady could answer and said, it's a Rolls Royce. And Brady ends up saying this: I think he needs to get his ass in the film room and spend as much time in there as possible, less time in the car and more time in the film room. That from Brady to Shedeur. And then, of course, Brady also, throughout his career, I don't know if he still has the car, he owns or did own a Rolls Royce and drove it during his career. And Chad, he said, yeah, I did that in the league, and I had a few more dollars at the time, and I had worked my way up to that level.
Hutton, I think that this is not an old man approach to this or a take, even though Tom Brady is now an old man as he says this. I think a lot of people look and say, oh, boomer, get off my lawn guy, got a problem with him having. I don't think it's just out of the realm of acceptability to have some issue with college-age guys having unlimited wealth, it looks like, in certain instances, when there is a task at hand. And Tom Brady, with all of his flash and his TB12 method and everything else, he's very much an old-school mentality type guy. And when Tom Brady was in college at Michigan, he sure as hell wasn't driving around in a Rolls Royce. He was trying to find his way onto the field to be a starter. He was in the film room, right? That's what he did throughout his career. There is this, and look, I know people are going to hear this and think, here's another old guy talking out against NIL. I'm not against NIL. I'm also not against an accomplished older professional having some issue with a college kid who hasn't done a lot yet in his career, having one of the most expensive cars on the road, and then saying, maybe get in the film room and worry about that instead of this. Will Levis had a chance to ask Peyton Manning a question when he was getting ready for the NFL draft. And he asked a question about, hey, you've done such a good job with your brand and branding and getting yourself out there. How would I do a better job with that? And Peyton Manning's response was, you just worry about being a good quarterback and a good football player, and the rest will follow. I am for NIL when it is a reward system because your play has determined that you are someone of value, that people know that are fans of the program, and you're making money off name, image, likeness. I'm all for that. I also have no issue with Tom Brady or anyone else saying, yeah, stop worrying about the car you're driving and get in the film room. Now, Shedeur Sanders has looked great. It's not like he's saying this about a guy who's not performed well. Whatever he's doing in his car, film room, whatever, has worked for Colorado so far and for him. But I got no problem with Tom Brady saying this. None whatsoever.
And it was a very good conversation. Primetime and Shedeur. Jim Gray asked Brady why he mentors Shedeur Sanders. And he says, I'm always here for him because because in him I see someone who has a great work ethic, but wants the knowledge too. I think all of us on this call had so many people in our lives which allowed us to be successful. Obviously, having great parents, but having these other instrumental people that come in at the right time when you're open to learning. And people always ask me, how good do you think this guy is going to be? And I always say it depends on who he surrounds himself with. It depends on who mentors him, because even he's talking to Prime, you weren't a finished product at 21 or 22. I certainly wasn't. I had the right people come into my life, and I was open to learning from them. That was Brady on the podcast.
Yeah, I think, look, we celebrate different things in sports at times as compared to the rest of the world and culture writ large. And so much of that is you got to earn your keep. And I need to see it not just once, not just twice, over and over again. And then when you reach that level, then every bit of success you get is warranted and everyone's okay with it. I'm not going to sit here and say I completely disagree with college football players' ability to make money or any of that. They need to get to the pros before they start making money, and they should suffer and struggle and live in a little dorm and have to work an extra job in the offseason and do all that. I don't buy that hardline level of it, but I also don't buy the concept that we should just celebrate any and every player driving the most expensive car or rocking the most expensive sunglasses and pregame warm-ups and not hold them accountable for it and not have mentors out there like a Tom Brady that can say, dude, worry about being in the film room right now. Don't worry about your car. This isn't about talking up your car or the clothes you're wearing or anything else. And look, this is a trickle-down effect. This happens in the NFL with a lot of guys. This happens. Hudson, we've joked before about the Titans fashion show before games, right?
Yeah, Project
Keith
Runway.
Bullock has talked about it, calling it Project Runway.
This is not just
This is college
that.
also.
Well, this is having Deion Sanders as your father.
Yeah.
That's also part of this. The coach is also pointing to the Rolls, but his son has the Rolls Royce, right? Like more power to him there. But I mean, it's not just Shedeur Sanders either. I mean, you've got the G-Wagon that's currently you can see that shown off in Columbia, South Carolina, I believe.
Yeah. No, it's not. I'm going to get into this later. This is the byproduct of the system that we have, and I'm totally fine with it. I'm fine with players getting paid. I'm also fine with fans being quicker to boo college kids, especially the ones that are getting paid. If you're making money and you're showing off your G-Wagon on Instagram, then I'm okay if South Carolina fans eventually decide to boo Spencer Rattler. I'm okay with Tom Brady telling Shedeur Sanders, get your ass in the film room and stop worrying about your car. There is a hierarchy here, right? There is a different level. When you make the NFL and you're making a huge paycheck, that's a different level than college. I'm not going to lie and say I'm totally comfortable with kids in college making over $1 million before they've played a snap. We're going to see how it works out. It might work out just fine. It might lead to these programs having immense success and no one has an issue with it. But it could also lead to some problems. And I think one of the problems that we're going to start to see, an unintended consequence, is fans who are already emotional and quick to be angry are going to be a lot quicker to anger because of this. They're now going to look on that sideline and say, see, this kid's worried about posting on Instagram with his NIL deal. He's worried about that G-Wagon that he's driving. And because of that, he can't read a defense. That you're going to see that happen a lot quicker. Not that it hasn't happened before, and we've seen a lot of emotions tied to college football. I do think it's going to happen quicker now, and it's going to be more warranted because a lot of these guys are making money. Not all of them, and not all of them are making a ton, but the top-level guys are. But
the Colorado fans are going to look at Shedeur Sanders and be like, yeah, we sucked when our quarterback was driving a 1993 Honda Accord on campus.
No, look, it's in Colorado, it's a special exception because they're not going to care at all. It's going to be nothing but praise this season after this 3-0 start. But it might be a year from now, even at Colorado. And we can point to Clemson and Alabama and other places where the worm is starting to turn on this from fans a little bit and questioning, hey, is this really good for us? Is this good for our program? Is it good for our players? It might be a year and a half, might be 2 years, might be 3 years. But if Colorado has success and builds up a level of expectation with their fans, if they start to fall flat in the face of that expectation, I guarantee even Colorado fans eventually will look around and say, are we worried too much about this and not enough about this? This being the football.
Lou Holtz coming up in about 9 minutes. Chad, Shohei Ohtani. This whole story is odd to me. So he cleans out the locker. That's a storyline. What's going on? He's done for the year, but he's not around the team anymore. They're photoshopping him into the team photo. He had elbow surgery yesterday, and he's going to go through the rehab process where he's not going to be able to pitch next year. He's going to hit only and play the DH role and then pitch in 2025. But here is the greatest player of our generation who is entering a massive free agent moment. And part of the reason that makes it so incredibly huge for the sport is his arm on the mound, the dual threat that he's playing every day, but also even in a doubleheader, he's pitching one and hitting in the next. And he's not going to be able to use that one asset for at least a year. And who knows how ultimately he recovers from that in what has been the incredible storyline of his ability and his baseball career to this point.
I wonder how much money it's going to cost him, first and foremost. It is going to cost him money on the open market.
It depends who he lets bid up the market.
Well, look, the market's going to dictate it, but I do think the market is lowered for the reason of he's not going to be a pitcher in year one.
But if Cohen, I'm just saying, like there are owners who don't go by the market; they go by just throwing money at a player.
I mean, if Cohen wants him, then he's going to pay whatever he thinks he needs to.
But there are those examples, though.
But I think even Cohen is going to pay less than he would have because of this.
So the other part?
My point is, like, he's still going to, if he wants to go above and beyond everyone else, he will. But I think above and beyond everyone else now will even be a little bit lower than it was before.
But the new rule, the new DH rule, allows Cohen to have the ability to bid up if he wants to. Because if he's just going to be able to hit every day, you would want him to put him somewhere in the field. But, I mean, again, they don't want him throwing at all for the 2024 season.
He's going to be a DH every day for someone
but
for
now
this next season.
Now that every team has the DH spot, I mean, you've got that ability for him to have every
it's
team
just not
going
to be as much as it was. I mean, a fully healthy Ohtani, who's also a starting pitcher next year, who could also,
see,
that's going to be more.
I wonder now if he jumps in at like a 3-year contract, 3 or 4 year deal, instead of this long-term contract that we see from Manny Machado, for instance, like the 15-year contract.
See, I would look more in the line of a 2-year deal. If you wanted to truly bet on yourself and you think you're going to be fully healthy and come back strong as a pitcher in year 2 of the deal, do that, and then in 2 years you get the astronomical contract that you were going to get this year. There's also some merit to say, I want to sign a 1-year deal somewhere that's a contender as a hitter only, and I'll sign that contract. Still going to be a lot of money, But I'm going to sign that 1-year deal, hitter only, and then a year from now, pony up, big boys, because I'm a pitcher again and I'm a hitter, and I'll sign that mega deal the following year. So it's all about how they want to approach it. My guess is, Hutton, it's going to be a long-term deal somewhere with someone valuing hitter in year 1. We hope the same pitcher starting in year 2. But you don't know. You don't know with an injury like this until they come back.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly just the story of that player, the one of a kind since Babe Ruth. I mean, here's hoping that he gets back to that level and fast. Chad, speaking of coming to a deal, XFL, USFL, they're merging. They've announced that. According to multiple reports, that's happening. There's still a lot of questions with this about, the name of the league, when games are played, who's broadcasting these games, television aspect, all of it, and who's running it at the very top. But going head-to-head in the spring, even though they overlapped only a handful of weeks, didn't seem to make all that much sense, given the fact that they're going up to the same pool of players where the quarterbacks that were in the USFL a year ago, this year, were now playing quarterback for the XFL.
Yeah, Front Office Sports had the initial story on this. I'm curious to see kind of who wins the merger, right? Who's really in control? Or is it a true merger where you got leadership from both sides that are kind of sharing all responsibilities?
The legendary Lou Holtz joins us next. We talk Ohio State taking on his Irish and much more. That's next on Hot Mic.
Looking back on that interaction, it seems like you really don't care. I mean, it seems like you wouldn't have gone about things any differently. But what does it say to you when there's these business owners who don't understand your vision of what you have for these places? I mean, you're giving them publicity at the end of the day. Even if you're not giving them the best review on the board, you're still putting their name out there on a platform that allows millions of people to realize their business when otherwise they probably would have just remained, a smaller business.
Yeah, he's a moron. It had nothing to do with how I was ranking the pizza. And he said that. He said a million things, like he doesn't want publicity. He keeps talking about it. But he just hated me. He didn't really know who I was. I'm sure it's the way his politics are, because if you go look at his feed, it's what I'd expect. It's extreme left, and those are the types of people who generally hate me before they meet me. But he said he wanted to yell at me before I even stepped in the store, so it had nothing to do with the review. And he's a clown show. He is one of the worst people. He's everything that is wrong with this country, and that's not exaggerating. But he's made up his mind before he meets somebody, picks a fight, and then the rest is history. But for me, it's good. It was the most viral thing we've had in a long time.
Yeah. And have you had any other pizza owners from places you covered in the past reach out to you and say, wow, we can't believe this guy? Like, look at the great things that you've done for our business because of the One Bite Pizza review.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing that's crazy. There's a lot of things that people could cherry pick that people have said about me that be like, oh, he's a bad guy, this and that. Pizza and small business is not one of them. That pretty uniformly across the board. People like Dave, very good for pizza. He's very good for small business. It's how we're doing this pizza fest. Like, we get places that would never do it, but it's like, we like I did an interview with Lucali, which is one of the most famous pizza places there is. And they're asking Mark, the owner, is like, why'd you agree? We don't see Lucali doing this type of thing. It's like, Dave has done so much good for the pizza industry. This guy didn't care. This guy had no answers. He was just a clown.
Okay, so I'm going to get to the Pizza Fest in just 1 second. I'm just curious, how did you get so into pizza? Was it just something, as a East Coaster, you felt like you needed to insert your voice into the ongoing, never-ending discussion of what pizza is the best, or was there something else behind it?
Yeah, so we talk about anything at Barstool, and probably 10, 12 years ago, myself and Big Cat Dan Katz, who's one of our top guys, we just had a debate. If you could eat one food the rest of your life, what would it be? He said tacos. I said pizza. And then we're like, let's just do it. He said tacos burritos, because like breakfast burritos. So he was just eating burritos. I just started eating pizza for like a month. That's it. And people were asking, well, what do you think of it? And that's where I coined, like, all right, I'll take one bite and score it. It just kind of clicked. I could tell it resonated with people. And that's where it was born from.
Okay, so now let's talk about your pizza festival. It is called the One Bite Pizza Festival. Very appropriate. It's taking place September 23rd in New York City. How do you prepare for such an event? I mean, so many different options at your disposal in one afternoon. Are you going to have to just forego pizza for the next couple weeks to really prepare yourself?
Well, I'm a trained professional. I don't know about the people going to it. I eat so much pizza, I'm probably better prepared, but I do think that will be a challenge for people going because we have so many great places. People have asked how this came about, and it was always suggested, hey, you should do Pizza Fest.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Chad, how often have we said this college football season seems as wide open as it's been in, well, since it's certainly the playoff era, but even prior to that, based on the number of teams that seem to be all around the same level?
I think really since Notre Dame had that beat down to Navy in week 0, followed by the SEC looking mortal. For the first time in a while, looking wide open and not like there's a true dominant team in that conference, which I think naturally opens the door for a lot of other really good programs.
We find out a lot about Notre Dame and Ohio State this coming weekend. And a man who certainly knows a lot about the Irish and college football Hall of Fame coach, the legend, Lou Holtz, joins us on Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow. Coach, thank you so much for the time yet again.
Thank you for having me. And I got to say this, that one of the problems with the SEC is there's no established quarterback this year, which is really unusual. And that's the reason there's so much apprehension about who's going to end up number one.
Yeah, it's a great point, Coach. And how surprised are you to see the situation Alabama's in with one first-round quarterback after the other in recent years, and now they've got a bit of a revolving door at quarterback this year. This is something new for Nick Saban based off the last 10 years.
Where they decided on Milrow, I think it is.
Yep.
I think it's my decision. I think he is the one who can escape all the pressure that the quarterback's been under because their offensive line's not performing exceptionally well. But I also think losing O'Brien to the New England Patriots was a big blow because he had done a tremendous job there. And if you look at it down the line, Alabama's recruiting hadn't been as good as it has been, and they aren't doing as good a job with transfers. And that's one thing Notre Dame done a great job this year is bringing in the right transfers.
And one of those, Sam Hartman, what do you think about the quarterback there, Coach, and what he's done for the Irish to this point and expectations for this weekend?
Well, if you look at his statistics, he would be a Heisman candidate. I think this is his 7th year starting. I'm not sure. I know he started 5 or 6 years with Wake Forest, but he has a great offensive line. He's got excellent receivers. Has a good running back. He's got everything going for him. He can sit back there in a rocking chair. They protect him very, very well, but he's also very accurate, very experienced. And it was just what Notre Dame needed to make a run for the national championship.
Can they do that? Do you buy that they're that talented this year?
I do. I think we have 3 tough games. Of course, Ohio State. I don't think Clemson will be that tough, although we do play them down there. But I do worry a little bit about Southern Cal. We'll have to outscore Southern Cal. Fortunately, their defense isn't very good, but Southern Cal's offense is tremendous. But I think that Notre Dame, has a good chance of running the table. And why against Ohio State? Because the only games that Coach Day has lost has been against teams that have played very, very physical up front. And that's the one thing Notre Dame will do. Notre Dame could protect the passer. The receivers can get open, and they can read whether it's man or zone, etc. Plus, they have a good running game. S-Time, I don't know if I pronounce it right, but he's averaging about 10 yards a carry. When you look at the offensive line, you have a talented running back. You have good, fast receivers. And I think the new offensive coordinator has done a tremendous job.
Obviously, and I'm not telling you this, I'm asking you this question, but a responsibility of a coach is to find a player, disguise their weakness, and then exploit the weakness of the opponent. Coach, when you watch Marvin Harrison Jr. for Ohio State, is there a weakness in his game as a wide receiver talent from what you've seen?
I think it was 1 week he didn't show up. He had, 18 yards in total receptions that week. But when he shows up, and he's right, he's very, very difficult. And this is the one thing that worries me about this game. Notre Dame's been able to get pressure on the passer by blitzing and playing man coverage. And you pointed out when you're playing man coverage, you look for the mismatch. And there's nobody can stack up against Marvin Harrison in the entire country. I mean, the guy is just outstanding. He's big, he's strong, he's fast, has great hands, has great intelligence, and he's very, very impressive. However, there's never been a horse that can be rode. There's never been a rider that can be thrown. And I think that what you have to do is double cover Marvin Harris. You have to change up your coverage in some way. But I think that you can neutralize a receiver. You aren't going to intercept the snap from center, so you can't neutralize a running back, but you can neutralize a receiver by double coverage, throwing him off his timing, off his routes, etc.
Coach Lou Holtz with us on Hot Mic with Hunt and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Are we sleeping on Penn State a little bit, or is this the year that they could climb the ladder and be atop the Big Ten?
I usually say no, but this year I'd have to say maybe. Their quarterback is playing very well. I think their defense coordinator has done a tremendous job with the defense. However, when you have to play Michigan and Ohio State, that's a very difficult hill for anybody to climb, particularly as good as Michigan is this year. I love the quarterback for Michigan. I love their physical approach. And they've won the championship for 2 years, and they've beaten Ohio State back-to-back by out-toughing them.
Coach, I think by all measurements, Tennessee was ahead of schedule a year ago with that 11-2 season, and that does set the bar really high for year 3. I think Saturday night was a reality check as to where Tennessee still is as a program. They're a good program. They're not anywhere near great the way they played at Florida on the road. How difficult is that throughout your coaching career? If you get a really quick start at a place, to understand, hey, we've done this, but it's really hard to remain where you were before, knowing you still have to build.
Well, that's always very, very difficult. But I think that let's give Florida an awful lot of credit. The transfer that Florida got from University of Wisconsin did a tremendous job the other night. But and I'm not sure how much longer certain coaches will remain in the profession. Let's take Nick Saban, because whether it's Nick Saban, whether it happens to be Dabo Swinney, Urban Meyer, whoever, this is what happens. You go there and you turn the program around, you're a genius. Everybody's excited. And then when you win the championship or you get very close to it, then nobody's ever happy. And what happens is you go from the exhilaration of winning a game to all of a sudden, that's over. We expected that. Winning is no longer a great thrill, and losing is an absolute catastrophe. And Nick Saban's finding it now. He didn't play well enough to win against big enough against the opponent they had last week. But it's just very, very difficult. But that's why you have to keep improving. And if what you did yesterday looks a big deal, you haven't done much today. But you also have to remember this. You go through 4 phases as a football team, same as in a business. First of all, you learn how to be competitive. You go into a losing situation, you learn how to be competitive. How do you do that? By executing the fundamentals. Then stage 2, you have to learn how to win. How do you learn how to win? By doing the little things. Everybody does the big thing. Great teams do the little. And you go through stage number 3, you have to learn to handle winning. Because what happens when you start winning, everybody wants credit for it, and everybody thinks it's automatic. They forget what it was like when everybody was losing, how despondent everybody was. So they just take it for granted, and that doesn't happen. When you get to the stage 4, where the players take charge of the culture of the team, they don't wait for the coach to correct a younger player. The older players will tell the younger player, this is how we do things, and you develop that culture. Alabama has it. Dabo Swinney has it. The list goes on, and Georgia's got it now. But you have to stay to the point. You either get better or get worse. You don't stay the same.
Coach Lou Holtz with us. I realize you may not know the answer to this. It's just speculation, but you also You also can lean on experience and your background. So you mentioned the Bama performance against South Florida, and it reminded me that immediately after the game, we were starting to hear conversation about Saban stepping away after the season, doing something else, not getting out of coaching. And for the last 15 years, SEC fans have been like, well, in 5 years, when Saban retires, then our team's going to be back. And they were saying that a long time ago, and he's still there. Chad and he seems like a lifer. I have never contemplated Saban stepping away from the Alabama program. Could you see something like that?
Yes, I can, because if things start to go downhill, then, as I said, losing is an absolute catastrophe. You feel like you lost a member of your family. It feels like it's a funeral, where you don't have the excitement of winning anymore that everybody expects it. Okay, where do we go next? Thank goodness that's over. We got by that. That same thing happened to me at Notre Dame. No matter what you do, it's not good enough. And you can't really enjoy the excitement other than the association with the players. That's the thing that keeps you in coaching.
Coach, what is your overall impression of what Deion Sanders has done so far at Colorado with that program and the start to this season?
I think Deion Sanders done a tremendous job. I think he's a great coach. However, the real Sanders is the quarterback. That's the reason that they're all so successful. He is unbelievable. He's done a tremendous job. I happen to coach Deion and Andre Rison in the Hula Bowl. I tell you, Deion is a treat to have on the team. His attitude, his charisma, and he isn't hailing the offense or the defense or the X and O's. He's very smart on that. But he is great at handling the morale of the team. He has 88 transferred or portal players, and that's hard to have that many new players. But he's been able to handle it. Let's give him all the credit in the world. However, let's not build a shrine to him yet. Let's see how well he does against Oregon this week. But I think the quarterback is really tremendous. And I think Deion, give them all the credit in the world and all the recognition they're getting in Colorado, they truly deserve.
Is this the future, what we're witnessing from Deion Sanders? And I know not everyone can be Deion Sanders and do this, but if you take over a job like Colorado that had fallen on hard times, are we seeing sort of a template for how to work the transfer portal, how to reinvent a program almost overnight? And do you think this will lead to, I know Deion would be offended by me saying this, but more and more celebrity coaches in college football in the world of NIL and transfer portal?
I think it's a great question. I say this, I worry about the future of college football. Number one, I think the transfer portal is one of the worst things that you could possibly do. We very seldom had a football player transferred to any school I've coached against because you make a commitment to it. And you go to school, and part of sitting on the bench, you learn to persevere, you learn to improve, you learn to accept your role, you learn to get a good education. That's why you go to that school. Now, all of a sudden, here we have the quarterback for, I think it's Rice this year. He's starting for his fourth team. He started for Southern Cal, then he started for Georgia.
JT Daniels, yep.
Yeah, and now he's starting for Rice. What in the world is this world coming to? It's all about instant gratification. So I think that the transfer portal, you learn to make a decision. We had a young man came to Notre Dame by the name of Kevin McDougal. He was a quarterback, and he was a year behind Rick Bauer. He didn't play very, very much. His second team all the way through. He came into a senior. I tried to start Ron Palace ahead of him as a freshman because I didn't think Kevin could do it. Ron Palace hurt his shoulder in preseason. We had to go with Kevin McDougal. All he did was go 11-1, I think it was, set all the passing records. It was just an absolute joy. That's a whole part of life, is learning to wait your time. And being paid for an athlete to play football, I think that's wrong. I really and truly do. See, what happens is you should be paid if you work at McDonald's. You should be paid if you work at Walmart, but not to play football. And what happens is the coaches started chasing the money. The most I made at Notre Dame was $115,000, and that was after a big race after we won the national championship and expanded our stadium to 80,000. but the coaches chase the money. Now they're making $9-10 million a year. And then what happened? The athletes start chasing the money. Now what's happening? The conferences are chasing the money. The schools are. In other words, how in the world do you have Southern Cal and UCLA in the Big Ten? Used to be you joined a conference because you had the same objectives academically. You were very, very close geographically. You also had the same objectives athletically, and that's what made a conference. Now it's all about money. Well, I see where one of the conference schools are, well, we don't get enough money if we don't Florida State in it. We need to go to another conference. It's all about the coaches chase the money, the athletes, now the schools are.
Coach Lou Holtz never disappoints whenever we chase him down and he agrees to come on the show here on Hot Mic. Coach, we always appreciate the visit. We're always out of time where we could use more with the conversation. And here's hoping next time you join us, we'll talk about all those QBs out on the Pac-12 and West Coast that are tearing it up right now. We always appreciate the time here.
The Pac-12 has 3 teams for a potential national championship, and they haven't had one in a long time. But I think Oregon, Washington, and Southern Cal. But the major, all 3 have quarterbacks that transferred. Penix from transferred from Indiana. Yep. You look at the quarterback transferred from Auburn, and then Southern Cal transferred from Oklahoma. So it goes round and around, but it's all the same.
Coach, you're the man. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
At Coach Lou Holtz, 88 is where you can follow him on social. Never complained with the visit there. We have primary complaint next, though. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, like who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Jam-packed show today. Our thanks to Coach Lou Holtz for joining us. We've got the pro football doc. Dr. David Chao joins us in 20 minutes. Very latest on Joe Burrow, Saquon Barkley, and much more. Recovery time and what it's like for Nick Chubb now. And Clay Travis plus Coach Trent Dilfer. All on the show today.
He'll have thoughts on everything.
Clay or Trent?
Both.
Oh.
But I was referring to Trent more than Clay in that one. We know Clay has thoughts, but Trent doesn't come on every week with us. But every time he does, it's impactful.
Plenty of thoughts in the chat room right now on YouTube. You can join us. Search out OutKick on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. Join Chad there. He's typing away.
We have a guy joining us in the chat room today from Tajikistan. That we're now we're just asking questions about what life is like in Tajikistan.
Fly your flag.
Favorite sport, all those things. Yeah, we're gonna figure it out.
Chad, every
Big in
Wednesday
Tajikistan.
at this time, we welcome in Davey, Hudson as well for this. It is time for Primary Complaint.
It's time to air our top grievance of the week.
You can complain all you want.
My job is so unfulfilling. Don't run away from your feelings.
It's time for Hot Mike's Primary Complaint.
Guys, my primary complaint this week, activation codes for streaming services and the lack of consistency or, I would just say common sense on whenever you're asking me to go to a website and type in the activation code so then the TV will then stream the service that I'm subscribed to. You have roughly 3 or 4 letters, 3 or 4 numbers. And for whatever reason, guys, the 0 and the letter O, common sense would say use the /0 if it's going to be the number. If it's the number, use the slash so that I know that it's the number. And far too often, 3 or 4 of these streaming services that I use, they don't differentiate, and it's virtually the same size O or 0. And then I get the response back saying it's incorrect and, you must be a bot or you're trying to steal this service from someone and I have to go in and verify my email again. I'm tired of this. Either don't use O or 0 or use the slash like everyone else. That's my primary complaint.
It's funny you say that because when we were putting in the lower today, the 0 and the O are the exact same thing on the font we use.
I noticed that.
Is it real? There it is.
I was looking at it. I'm like, it's code O versus O. Is what it looks like to me, not 0 versus O.
Is it O versus 0 or 0 versus O? How do we read this? How do you read it, Chad? Is it O first? You go letter or number first?
I go letter first.
I do too.
I assume, especially with that. Well, especially when I'm looking at a collection of letters.
Yeah.
As in reading print on a screen, I think letter first with O.
This happens.
You've hit on something here though that is a common problem.
Yeah.
That I often don't think about. But
why
O
can't they
versus
use
0
the
is
slash?
an issue.
Use the slash.
Yeah. O versus 0 is a problem. Let me tell you about a problem I had this week, and I'll try to make the preamble to this as quick as possible. Get home from coaching my 8-year-old daughter in softball on Monday night. The smoke detector is chirping. in one part of the house. Thinking, okay, took all the girls, by the way, 7-0, 8-0 start actually, took them to McDonald's for their 8-0 start in the season. Get home a little bit later.
Over under $100 on the meal.
$65 for all the girls to eat.
Fantastic.
I've got food afterward. I got my chicken McNugget meal. Ready to chow down on that. You know, it's probably 9 o'clock at this point. The chirping turns into every smoke detector in the house is going off at a volume that would scare any animal within a 20-yard radius of the house, okay? Daughters are freaking out. We got to send them on the front porch because they think the house is burning down. Clearly it's not. Start looking around. I've got to detach every smoke detector, not just press a button, detach them to get them to go off one by one. Get to my daughter's room and take off the smoke detector from the ceiling, and something wet hits my hand. And I think, is this battery acid? Because I'm taking the battery out of it. What is going on? And then I notice there's water streaming from the ceiling. So I know this is where the upstairs air conditioning unit is, above this area. Go up into the attic, go in there. Water has seeped through out of the drip pan of the HVAC unit, through the ceiling. Would not have known about this had it not dripped right into the ceiling smoke detector and set off every alarm in the house. So after getting all the water up, soaking it up with towels, everything else, get my HVAC guy out the next day. $700 later, get everything fixed, drip pan's working, the pipes on the outside, the drainage, get all that done. That's not my primary complaint. My primary complaint came from Mike, my trusted HVAC guy, who I trust with this. If he tells me that's what it is, that's what it is. When he tells me that the fact that we are using more expensive air filters, these allergy-proof air filters that are $30 for 2 of them. We've been using this for years. He looks up at the air filters when he's looking at everything in the house, and he says, you're making a mistake. The cheaper ones are better. And I look at him, I think, what? The cheaper ones are, I feel like Chris Farley.
Better
in the
or
sketch,
the same? Better.
When he's told that the coffee, wasn't what? No, better. He says these expensive air filters that they sell you on, they don't help with allergies. They don't help with anything in the air and contamination. All they do is raise your energy bills because of what they do with the air conditioning unit. My primary complaint is the fact that the cheaper air filters are actually better for your house and not the most expensive ones. And it took all of these things happening for me to realize that if it's more expensive, I feel like it should be better. If it says it's going to help with allergies and particles in the air and all that, I feel like it should do that. This is 2 weeks in a row. First, it was allergy medication that doesn't work. Now it's the allergy-proofing air filters that doesn't work. And I learned this from an HVAC professional that I trust. This is my primary complaint.
You hit on, though, the conspiracy theory element of this, that they actually drive up the energy bills, and that's helping. There's some type
They're
of...
in cahoots with the energy companies.
Yeah, it's like Apple, whenever they self-sabotage your iPhone with an update, your battery gets slower.
He said it overworks your unit, and it raises your energy bills. He said just get the cheap ones, and they'll work even better. Now, he did say something about like painter's tape, that with the cheap ones, you got to put painter's tape around the side. And I'm like, okay, now this feels like it's too involved for me, but okay. But either way, that's my primary complaint.
I'm trying to think, is there the idea that it makes you feel better just knowing, and like the people are under the impression, I pay a little bit more, so this is actually better for me? It's kind of like the placebo impact.
Well, see, I've had bad allergies my whole life, but it's been worse in my house the last like 3 or 4 months. And now he's convinced me that it's because I'm using subpar air filters is the reason. But the subpar air filter are the ones that are $30 for 2 of them. That's way more expensive than the normal air filter I would buy. I've been duped once again.
Well, Chad, my primary complaint revolves around not just paying more, but paying in general, because the most recent news to come out, I've been on this before, but Elon Musk suggests that X will start charging all users a quote-unquote small monthly payment. Why would you do this, man? You keep coming in here. I get you're trying to make some changes. He's saying the reasoning behind it is so we can get rid of all the bots. Listen, I'd rather put up with the bots than actually have to pay for the product at hand. This is something that you can't give somebody something for free for a long period of time and then just magically expect them to start paying for it, thinking, hey, this is going to work out for what the community has been built around this platform. That's where I get frustrated, and that's why it's my primary complaint.
Well, that's another conspiracy theory of mine, is that if you're bringing this up, that you can't get rid of the bots without just having the paywall. Who's to say that they're controlling the bots and they can just push them out there on their own to make the perception be that they've got to get rid of them? They create something they have to get rid of.
That probably happens. And Davey brings up a good point with X, excuse me. But we're going to see this more and more. There's a lot of tomfoolery going on with streaming services where they're all now talking about, hey, we've undervalued our product for a while. You can expect huge rate increases. I'm not talking about $3 or $4 more. I'm talking 100% rate increases for things like Disney Plus or Paramount Plus or HBO Max or whatever you have a subscription to. Get ready for those things to go sky high. And what pisses me off about this is the only reason they started so cheap was an investor play. They're trying to show off for their shareholders. So they way underprice all these things. They get us in, and they act like it's going to be that way forever.
And then don't tell us the ratings.
And then once they get the numbers and it pumps up the shareholder value and all that, they realize, hey, we're losing a ton of money off this. Now we have to screw our customers and raise it by 300%.
There are some companies, and just a piece of advice in general, I've used it for some. I need to try it for Netflix. But, for example, I had SiriusXM free for 3 months free when I first got it. And so then they, of course, want to get you on a subscription. And so they're like, oh, we can do this first year for $5.99, and then it's going to go up. Well, the first month after it went up, it went from basically $6 to $25. I just told them I like the rate I had. I'm just going to cancel this altogether if you keep making me pay $25 a month. They're like, we'll give it to you for $5.99 for a month, each month for a year. So sometimes you just call and they'll be willing to do it. Now some platforms won't be doing that, but it's just a trick to try if you're looking to keep something, but you don't want to have that increased rate.
Well, the churn rate is going to raise also, where, if you're into Stranger Things on Netflix, you'll just subscribe for a month or two to Netflix and watch all the Stranger Things episodes, and then you'll cancel your subscription.
But
not do it for a year round. Right now, most people are just passive and will just pay it monthly.
But I don't think it'll be the majority part of that. I think what they're betting on is they'll raise it. People will pay to watch their show.
Yeah.
And while they're watching their show, they will end up watching something else that they get hooked on. And they want to binge this and then binge that.
And they also just bank on people's laziness.
Well, not just laziness. Just,
like that's my issue. It's
auto pay.
I don't want to mess with it.
Well, just auto pay.
Yeah, so many people just, hey, if I'm not out of money, they just don't want to mess with it and try to unsubscribe to something they've already subscribed to.
Yeah.
It's hard to get people to have action one way or the other. It's hard to get people to go in and say, I am going to now be a paid subscriber to your service. And it's equally hard to get them to say, I am now going to unsubscribe to your service. Or try to do that over and over again because you want to watch a certain show.
Hotels aren't trying to cut down on washing towels and sheets because they're helping the world, the planet. They're doing it to save money. Paperless billing isn't to cut down on paper. It's so that you don't have to get out your checkbook and actually handwrite the price that you're turning in, or see the bill each month that you already have auto pay with, that will be subconsciously, in your mind that you're paying this. We've got to call about this, or you have your significant other telling you you've got to call about this tomorrow. That doesn't happen with the paperless billing. It's online, and it's more or less viewed in an email as spam.
Well, we used to make things in America. That's the way I just continue to feel this. Like we're just in this eternal trap of a virtual space that we're all just having money taken from our account that we never see. Nothing's real. Nothing's real anymore, including expensive air filters is what I found out. That's not even real. We don't make things in America anymore. It's just all a virtual space that's taking money from us. What?
So they're real. You paid for them.
Yeah, they're real. They just the effects they claim to have aren't real. But
are they?
I did pay for them.
Is it? Have you guys been affected by them trying to cut down on how many username and password shares there are for these things? Like, I haven't, using my own, I'm saying I've got multiple devices set up, and I haven't been, nothing has come across for me.
I don't think anything stopped yet for me with that, with multiple devices on it.
You're the pro
only
at this.
Thing is Netflix. because my sister would use it, and she had my password, and she's terrible about logging out of devices. So I think at one point I was signed into 7 different things, and then 5 of which were
you can go in and log out, right?
Yes, and I did. And of course, she's like, "Hey, why'd you do that?" I was like, "Well, I'm the one paying for this. I'm letting you use it. Yet you have 5 accounts."
Says the guy who made a plea to friends of his to not get rid of one of the services.
Next week, Davey needs to tell us the worst thing that he's watched on Netflix that his sister had to see on the continue watching.
No, you got different profiles.
Davey, what is this?
Different profiles.
No, but that was I had her create.
What is this
a profile.
documentary you've been watching?
It was no, she kept messing with my list and
sure,
stuff
it was
in
dark
there.
and sinister.
It was Gossip Girl. So yes, very dark and sinister.
I got a buddy who is so into Gossip Girl. It's all he wants to watch. Loves that show, and he's not being ironic about it at all. Legitimately loves it. Thinks it's a masterpiece, a work of art.
Clay Travis
Also
and
not
Trent
dark
Dilfer
and
still to
sinister,
come
though.
when we come back. Dr. David Chao joins us. The latest on the injuries across the NFL. The Pro Football Doc next on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of a Southern legend.
Just like that, the second hour is here on this Wednesday edition of Hot Mic with Hudson and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us, joining us as we broadcast live from 6th and Peabody with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Clay Travis joins us in 20 minutes, and then next hour, Trent Dilfer on the show, head coach at UAB. As Chad likes to say, he has thoughts.
Pretty big challenge for the man with thoughts this weekend, going up against Georgia.
Yes, and he loves the atmosphere between the hedges. We will get his take on why he's loving this game so much. Chad, going into week 2 of the NFL schedule, we had the Aaron Rodgers news. Dr. David Chao joined us, and this past off-season, well, not off-season, during training camp, I want to give him a shout-out as we welcome him in, the Pro Football Doc, Dr. David Chao with us. He told us 2 things. Number one, Joe Burrow, he joined us the day Joe Burrow went down with the calf strain, day 2 of training camp, and he said, hey, you have to be very careful with this because if you don't come back 100% and you push it, you can re-injure this and aggravate it moving forward. That's number one. That's been a story because Joe Burrow is on the injury report with the calf strain issue. And he also said Aaron Rodgers, initial take, has a chance to come back around January playoff time. No official timetable, but it's possible. And then all of a sudden, that was a headline a few days later. Well done. And I wanted to give you a shout out there instead of just pointing to headlines across the NFL reporters landscape there. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on. And I think, for OutKick and through all our platforms, Sports Injury Central, what makes it unique is that with injury analysis, not injury reporting. So we're just not repeating what someone else says. It's primary analysis based on insider knowledge from my time in the NFL. That's why we come up with the Aaron Rodgers take or the Joe Burrow's take, et cetera. It's analysis from 17 years in the NFL.
Is it as simple as I'm watching Joe Burrow with the calf issue on the sideline, and I think back to, he wasn't 100% whenever he came back, and he's re-aggravated this because they pushed him back, or he chose to come back too early?
Well, I'm not saying push. Like when it was first hurt July 27th, we said calf strain 1, but we were still worried about the chance of aggravation, and unfortunately that's now happened. And we've said this is going to bother him into October of resting this week. If I were a team physician for the Bengals, and I'm not, and they have good medical staff, I actually know their head athletic trainer really well, really good guy, very smart. My point is, if they were being told that rest 1 week and Joe Burrow will be 100%, I think everyone would rest Joe Burrow this week. The problem is, this has been something from July 27th. It re-aggravated. Resting 1 week doesn't make it miraculously better. And can you afford?
Pro Football Doc.
And the answer is probably not. They're 0-2 right now, playing the Rams at home. That's just a big deal right now in terms of what's happening.
You cut out there for a bit, Doctor, but what would the rest be required to make this thing go away? Or is there a level that's even reasonable for Joe Burrow? If it's not 1 week and it's going to be better, how long would he need to be on the shelf where he could come back and not have any lingering issues with this calf issue?
4 or 6 weeks. Remember, this is a July 27th initial injury. This is why 1 week is not going to solve it. So I think at this point in time, look, if it's really bad, they may have to a little bit just to get him out there. Of course, they don't want to go start the season 0-3. I think only a handful of teams throughout since the schedule change in 1979 have made the playoffs after starting 0-3. Maybe they have him out there with some sort of ankle foot orthosis, dynamic orthosis to help him. It makes him a little less mobile, but having Joe Burrow from the pocket is still an asset. And if that protects him from getting worse, maybe that's what they end up doing. We'll see. Injury analysis with the Pro Football Doc from Sports Injury Central, Dr. David Chao. Speaking of analysis, tell us just initial thoughts on what you saw from the hit and the injury for Nick Chubb on Monday night, and now the timetable of recovery, which is going to be lengthy given all of the ligaments that were listed as a problem there. Oh, and we just lost
Dr. Chao there. We'll get him back
We'll
on.
try to reconnect for sure.
Yeah, we will.
Unfortunately, so many injury stories to discuss around the league that we want to get to with Dr. Chao.
Saquon Barkley officially ruled out today. This is a day after Brian Daboll said that he was surprised that Barkley looked so great in talking with him and watching him recover from Sunday's issue with the ankle sprain. But they ruled him out, and Schefter had reported it was a 3-week type situation. But the short week, it wasn't realistic that he was going to turn around that fast, going from Arizona to San Francisco and trying to play. No need to push it, given the circumstances.
Looks like we've got Dr. Chao back on with us.
Hey, so we were discussing Saquon Barkley there a bit and just the timetable for him, but we'll get back to that in a moment. The question was regarding, and the setup on what we saw from Nick Chubb and just the process now of him trying to get back to where he was, given the severity of the injury.
Yeah, and look, better medical expert than tech expert. I'm sorry, I was on the wrong line.
No, you're good.
It's much better now.
Yeah, you can tell it's much better now.
My bad. I should have switched. Anyways, Nick Chubb, here's the thing. I feel for him. Look, everyone saw the video. That's a knee dislocation. That's why we said he's going to get sent to the hospital to make sure the artery and nerve are okay. At least that's okay. This is his second knee dislocation. At Georgia, he had a knee dislocation. Same knee, a little bit different, some similar, some different ligaments. He already beat the odds with his NFL success with his college knee dislocation. It would be unprecedented if he came back from a second knee dislocation to his same level. I hope he does it. He did it once, but the odds are stacked against him here with the second knee dislocation. They were against him with the first one, and he beat those odds. Hope he can beat the odds the second time again, but big hill to climb for him. Too bad.
How brutal is the rehab process for him now?
First of all, you can book this one. If he comes back, and I hope he does, it will not be in 2024. That's how bad the rehab is. The surgery he's going to have, he might have 2 or more than a couple stage surgery, fixing part of it and then reconstructing later. This is complex. This is Teddy Bridgewater-esque, right? I mean, remember his ordeal.
Yes, absolutely.
And Bridgewater is not even a running back. So 2023 is out of the question. I don't see it in 2024. I hope he can do it at some level in 2025.
Well, Saquon Barkley ruled out for Thursday night with the ankle issue there. Brian Daboll yesterday, they didn't rule him out yesterday, but did today. Short week. And it had already been reported by Schefter, among others, that it was going to be a week-to-week deal. What's the process here, and was it ever realistic that he was playing this week?
Never realistic playing this week. By video, we have him with a high ankle sprain.
Okay.
The Giants have never said high ankle sprain. The Giants said ordinary ankle sprain. They never specified high or low. Ordinary low ankle sprains commonly don't even need MRIs. They used an MRI. Yes, x-rays are negative, but we believe this is by video mechanism. Once again, injury analysis not reporting that it's a high ankle sprain. In 2019, Saquon Barkley, same ankle, high ankle sprain, missed 3 weeks. Are we saying exactly 3 weeks? No, but we were saying all along, no way Thursday, and iffy for next week at this point in time, and we'll have to see. And we found amusement in Coach Daboll. It's coach speak, right? That's what coaches do.
Right.
Oh, I'm not ruling him out yet. You don't have to. You don't have to rule him out to the final injury report. Now they have. So they're being honest with the injury reporting. And that's kind of what we do at Sports Injury Central, the analysis, not the reporting.
Can you walk us through the speed bridge Achilles surgery that Aaron Rodgers underwent? Give us a little bit of background about this doctor that performed the surgery, who apparently is famous in this department, and your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers' comments that, hey, it's not out of the question that he could be back for a playoff run with the Jets this year.
The doctor is a very good doctor. He's more famous in sports and knee and shoulder stuff than Achilles. There's no such thing as an Achilles specialist, but he's a really good doctor. I've had the fortune of lecturing at his conferences and courses and him at mine. Very good doctor, top notch. The only thing I'd say is the Speed Bridge. Sexy name, Speed Bridge, sounds good. Reported as innovative. This technique was popularized well over a decade ago. It's not new. It's not shocking. And if he comes back in January, it's not necessarily because of this technique. It's good surgery and good rehab. But yes, I brought up the possibility of Aaron Rodgers returning, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think it's a snowball's chance of returning, and here's why. First of all, the Jets got to get to the playoffs. Second of all, if they get to the playoffs with Zach Wilson, and Aaron Rodgers is somewhat ready, but not 100%, do you really make the switch to Aaron Rodgers if Zach Wilson got you there? So if the Jets make the playoffs, Zach Wilson or someone gets them there, and Zach Wilson is now hurt, and Aaron Rodgers is maybe able to do something, that's the threading the needle where you might get Aaron Rodgers back. But I am confident he will be back in 2024.
Austin Eckler, week to week. What do you see in that? And he misses another practice today. We know he's a crucial piece to the Chargers offense. He's led the league in touchdowns, total touchdowns over the last 2 seasons.
By video, he also has a mild high ankle sprain. I think he beat Saquon Barkley back, but this week certainly very iffy for him with his mild high ankle. But I do think he beat Saquon Barkley back.
Just to go back to Burrow for a moment, do you think it's likely he plays? And if he does, how different is it for him mobility-wise if he plays for the Bengals this week as they try to avoid 0-3?
Well, week 1 rush for -1 yards. Week 2, 1 rush for 5 yards. He's already not that mobile. It's about mobility in the pocket. And what makes it harder for Joe Burrow and, quote, easier for Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, it's front foot. It's Achilles. I get the difference. But Joe Burrow, it's back foot, push off with the calf. And that's where things are a little bit harder. But look, anyone who tells you that the decision has been made on whether Joe Burrow is playing or not this Monday night doesn't know. I've been in the rooms. You have an idea, you discuss it, but you got to see how the week goes. So don't know how this is going to go. If it turns out that he really can't be effective, they're going to need to take the week off. And if it were Brandon Allen as the backup quarterback, that decision might be easier. Their backup now is new, and the guy Browning has never started an NFL game in his career, so that makes it more difficult. So the team has to weigh out what is best. I'm sure Joe Burrow wants to go. The question is, can he? And he won't be 100% if he goes, but can they help him in a way he can get through the game? Because you really can't afford to rest him 4 to 6 weeks. So these are the kinds of discussions that will be had at the Bengals headquarters behind closed doors.
Do you see anything in Travis Kelce's return that it was of concern given the fact that he missed the season opener?
Well, yeah, he won 100%, right? I mean, we knew that he wasn't going to hit his props and what have you. You got a touchdown, good for him.
Right.
Limited targets, red zone, limited chances. He wasn't himself. He wasn't getting thrown to downfield. He'll be better this week. Look, I was a little bit pleasantly surprised that he returned to play, but I can tell you, if Jay Glazer's report is correct of a deep bone bruise, 45 cc's of blood aspirated, pulled out of his knee after the initial injury, there was no possible way Travis Kelce was going to be 100% in week 2. Week 3 here, our 6 score, we're raising it into the 70s, high 70s. We had him in the low 70s, so he's better this week than last week, but still not 100%.
Dr. David Chao with us, Pro Football Doc. And I know the focus is on NFL, Doctor, but 1 minute left here. I know you've likely seen the hit that Travis Hunter took on the sideline of the Colorado game this weekend. What did you think, knowing that it's the liver and that recovery process?
Well, when he saw the hit happen, I said, worry for internal organ damage. Hope he doesn't have a lacerated liver, was the tweet. He does have a lacerated liver. Good news is his season's not over. Good news is no surgery required. He will be back. The bad news is no more Heisman. I think everyone heard Deion Sanders' comments.
Yep.
Unfortunate. The good news, he'll be back this year. And, it looks like he's so talented, he'll have chances to play at the next level and in the NFL. And he'll be back as good as new, but, 3 weeks at least, and then we'll see what happens.
Any concern with him coming back if he takes another big hit, or is this something that heals itself while you rest?
It heals itself pretty well while you rest. And I get the words lacerated liver really bothers people because it's like a knife cut it. And how did it happen? Well, a fractured rib can lacerate the liver, but the other way the liver lacerates is just a blunt trauma. Think of karate chopping a watermelon. You crack it, but you crack the liver basically, with blunt force. And that's kind of what happened with Travis Henry. The good news is it heals, but like I said, it's closer to a month for return.
Dr. David Chao, you can get the tweets that he's sending out in real time at Pro Football Doc. Thank you as always. We love Sports Injury Central and always appreciate the visit.
Yeah, let's visit without big time injuries next week, right? Hopefully it's just routine stuff and talking about the NFL as opposed to some of these horrific injuries.
No doubt. But thank you so much, and we'll catch up soon.
Thank you.
Always enjoy it. Yeah, lacerated liver, a bit different than the procedure that is for when you hear it than what Rodgers had on the Achilles.
It doesn't sound great.
No.
That's for sure.
No, it does not. Dr. Chao, great. Also great. Clay Travis, he joins us next on Hot Mic with Hudson and Withrow across the OutKick Network.
Looking back on that interaction, it seems like you really don't care. I mean, it seems like you wouldn't have gone about things any differently. But, what does it say to you when there's these business owners who don't understand your vision of what you have for these places? I mean, you're giving them publicity at the end of the day. Even if you're not giving them the best review on the board, you're still putting their name out there on a platform that allows millions of people to realize their business when otherwise they probably would have just remained, a smaller business.
Yeah, he's a moron. It had nothing to do with how I was ranking the pizza. And he said that. He said a million things, like he doesn't want publicity. He keeps talking about it. But he just hated me. He didn't really know who I was. I'm sure it's the way his politics are, because if you go look at his feed, it's what I'd expect. It's extreme left, and those are the types of people who generally hate me before they meet me. But he said he wanted to yell at me before I even stepped in the store, so it had nothing to do with the review. And he's a clown show. He is one of the worst people. He's everything that is wrong with this country, and that's not exaggerating. But he's made up his mind before he meets somebody, picks a fight, and then the rest is history. But for me, it's good. It was the most viral thing we've had in a long time.
Yeah. And have you had any other pizza owners from places you covered in the past reach out to you and say, wow, we can't believe this guy? Like, look at the great things that you've done for our business because of the One Bite Pizza review.
Yeah, that's the thing that's crazy. There's a lot of things that people could cherry pick that people have said about me that be like, oh, he's a bad guy, this and that. Pizza and small business is not one of them. That pretty uniformly across the board. People like Dave, very good for pizza. He's very good for small business. It's how we're doing this pizza fest. Like, we get places that would never do it, but it's like, we like I did an interview with Lucali, which is one of the most famous pizza places there is. And they're asking Mark, the owner, is like, why'd you agree? We don't see Lucali doing this type of thing. It's like, Dave has done so much good for the pizza industry. This guy didn't care. This guy had no answers. He was just a clown.
Okay, so I'm going to get to the Pizza Fest in just 1 second. I'm just curious, how did you get so into pizza? Was it just something, as a East Coaster, you felt like you needed to insert your voice into the ongoing, never-ending discussion of what pizza is the best, or was there something else behind it?
Yeah, so we talk about anything at Barstool, and probably 10, 12 years ago, myself and Big Cat Dan Katz, who's one of our top guys, we just had a debate. If you could eat one food the rest of your life, what would it be? He said tacos. I said pizza. And then we're like, let's just do it. He said tacos burritos because like breakfast burritos. So he was just eating burritos. I just started eating pizza for like a month. That's it. And people were asking, well, what do you think of it? And that's where I coined, like, all right, I'll take one bite and score it. It just kind of clicked. I could tell it resonated with people. And that's where it was born from.
Okay, so now let's talk about your pizza festival. It is called the One Bite Pizza Festival, very appropriate. It's taking place September 23rd in New York City. How do you prepare for such an event? I mean, so many different options at your disposal in one afternoon. Are you going to have to just forego pizza for the next couple weeks to really prepare yourself?
Well, I'm a trained professional. I don't know about the people going to it. I eat so much pizza, I'm probably better prepared, but I do think that will be a challenge for people because we have so many great places. People have asked how this came about, and it was always suggested, hey, you should do a pizza fest.
Sixth and Peabody, our location with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Hot Mike with Hunt and Withrow rolls on across the OutKick network. Chad, we welcome in Clay Travis, who joins us, founder of OutKick. And for both of you, I will always listen to you moving forward on Tennessee's matchup with Florida. The last couple of years, I have gone the opposite direction, thinking they've got to change. Even Florida covered last year, and I will always side with Chad and Clay.
Well, at least
forward.
last year and 2016 made me change my way of thinking at least a little bit in Neyland Stadium when Florida plays Tennessee. Just the fact they won those two, even though it's not many. Tough to have a lot of confidence in any team wearing Tennessee orange going to the Swamp and beating Florida.
I don't understand it, Clay. How does it happen?
Well, I mean, I think one answer is the SEC is not very good. That's been the trend lines of the first 3 weeks. And every team, when they're not very good, there's a lot of inconsistency. And so I just, for instance, look at the performance that was put up by Texas A&M at Miami, or Alabama at home against Texas, or South Carolina against North Carolina, even Georgia against South Carolina. But you start LSU against Florida State, Florida on the road against Utah. Everybody, I think, in the SEC so far has given their fan base reason to think that their teams aren't very good. And so when you kind of toss all that into the hopper, I think Tennessee's just not particularly good, particularly on the offensive side of the ball. And I think maybe we're starting to see the early aspects of what an era surrounding NIL is going to look like, and with the permanent opportunity to transfer as well. But to me, those are the two things that kind of stand out at this point in time.
How many legitimate title contenders do you see on the football landscape, Clay? And it's just on average, how many more or less than the typical year that we've seen when the SEC is top heavy?
Well, so, I mean, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, the way that I would describe things as we sit here is I do think there's an argument to be made that college football is going to become a lot more like the NFL. By which I mean, you can have a situation where the Giants go and lose 40-0 to the Cowboys, and then the next week they come back, get down 20-0, win 31-28. And most NFL fans kind of look around and say, okay, 1-1 is not that bad. I think we've, in college football, gotten used to the idea of teams go undefeated and win championships. I think with the transfer portal and NIL, what you're going to see, this is my early theory, is the ceiling is going to be lowered. That is, the truly elite teams are not going to be as elite as they have been in the past because talent is more evenly distributed. And the floor is, for the most part, going to be elevated because you're going to have talented players who say, okay, I don't want to be in second, playing second fiddle. I don't want to be the backup. I don't want to be third string. I can go start somewhere else now. And whereas in past years, they might have had to sit out for 2 years. So they would say, well, maybe I should stick it out. Now I think when you have perpetual free agency combined with NIL, you're going to see a lot of people making the decision, hey, I'm going to jump now.
And Clay, you look at the NIL landscape. You've got Gene Smith from Ohio State today testifying in front of this on Capitol Hill with these NIL hearings going on. And he is claiming that multiple players are requesting $5,000 just to visit Ohio State in the recruiting process. It feels like all of this is going to lead to quicker anger from fan bases. If there's going to be this level of entitlement before they get to campus, these players, when things go south, we've seen boo birds come out, it seems like a little bit quicker in different spots. I think fans are going to be less forgiving and not as easy to say, hey, these are college kids, can't boo them, can't get that mad at them when things like this are happening with such regularity. What do you think?
Georgia is the two-time defending national champion, and they got booed at halftime against South Carolina. So, yes, when I was a kid and a young fan, people would say, you shouldn't boo college kids because they're not professionals. Now I think the new era is you will be booed. Take it away for a second.
Yeah, we're about to jump in.
Get that cough out.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, though, that this Hutton is the one that I can legitimately look at and say, this is a problem.
How do you
if you're requesting $5,000 to visit, and you can do that with every school, and then you're just pillaging people for money,
but I'm thinking,
with no assurances you're going to be there.
I'm thinking, like, how do you approach Ohio State and say, if you want me to visit, give me $5,000?
I think about the scene from Blue Chips where Ricky Rowe goes to Nick Nolte and says, all right, so for me to go here, I'm going to need $50,000. You can put it in a gym bag of cash if you want. Gives him all the things that he needs to sign there. It's pretty crazy to think about.
I'm thinking, too.
Yeah, and look,
Go
it's
ahead.
not only, by the way, that going on, guys, it's that when you get to visit Ohio State, you can get paid $5,000. You can also then use them as a bidder against another school. Like, part of what schools have to figure out in the NIL era is, wait a minute, is that $100,000 offer that they're claiming is there from LSU or Tennessee, or where is it actually there, right? Because you don't have like some sort of scenario where over time, for instance, I'll give you an example. If you go out and you're a free agent in the NFL and you're an agent representing a player and you get on the phone with a team and you're like, guys, I've got a, $20 million offer on the table for my guy. Here's what they're offering. Can you beat it? If it turns out that you didn't ever have that offer, then the agent is not going to be trusted by the team going forward, right? There's a mutuality of trust involved. How often is the guy who is, it's almost always going to be a guy, repping a player going to have a long-term relationship with a school? I think what happens is somebody says, okay, I'll give you a $150. And then that guy who's repping the player goes to the other school and says, they gave me $150. Can you go $175? And it's like a public auction. And part of the problem is there is no salary cap. So figuring out how to allocate dollars is very difficult, and everybody's playing by different rules. And then you toss in that you may have 50 different state laws. And, what is it that makes the NFL so good? It's parity, right? It's the idea that every team has the same amount in theory to be able to spend on talent. So it's not, it's a relatively even playing field, and everybody just has to allocate their resources to the best ability. That's not really in existence right now in the NIL era. And even if it were, after a year, a guy can just be like, yeah, I'm leaving. You can't do that in the NFL. If you're a first-round draft pick, you're locked in for 4 years, and then the team gets an option on a 5th year. So you're locked in for 5 years before you could even consider the possibility of being a free agent. College football right now has perpetual free agency.
Two things that come to mind as I'm thinking about this. Number one, imagine us being in high school and playing at this level and the opportunity to go on all these college visits and be kings on campus with the player hosts and then the university or program hostesses for a game or game day or weekend. And you're passing that up because they won't pay you $5,000. And the other thing that I'm thinking is Ohio State's being asked to pay $5,000. I guarantee you that player would go to Colorado right now and not ask for anything.
Could be true. Although, again, the other thing I would say is why has this potentially leveled the playing field? I think a lot of this was going on already.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these guys were getting paid under the table already. And what NIL has done is make it a fairer playing field because suddenly so many other schools can compete. Remember, back in the day when that Nevin Shapiro story broke about all the cheating that Miami was doing? Do you remember why Miami was like taking guys out on yachts and like taking them to strip clubs and all those things? A lot of people miss this. It was because they didn't have the money at Miami to compete to sign the top players with the SEC schools. They had to sell them on the lifestyle in Miami is better than the lifestyle is going to be at Auburn or at, Ole Miss or Tennessee or Alabama or whatever, these college towns. Oh, you can come to Miami and you can live it up in South Beach and you'll be able to go to strip clubs and you'll be able to go to fancy clubs and then you can become an NFL player. But in the meantime, you're living that South Florida glamorous lifestyle. That's what we can provide. It wasn't money. And a lot of people miss that.
Yeah.
Well, and that kind of leads me to the U part two, which is what's going on in Boulder right now. They are the sexy program. I mean, they talk about this is Hollywood now in Boulder, Colorado, and it's moved to this college town. Clay, how sustainable is this for Deion Sanders? And do you see this as a program that even if they don't have the money to compete with top SEC or Big Ten schools altogether on paying for recruits, that can make it so cool and so appealing and have so many celebrities that eventually they're going to win a national championship under Deion?
I think it'll be harder because I think a lot of people say, oh, I'll take less money to go be able to compete for a championship. Most people don't do it. There's a great line Charles Barkley said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but he said, it's amazing how often athletes say God told them to go to the school that offered him the most money.
Well, and
or to the
Deion
team
says, Clay,
the
that
most
God
money.
told him to leave Jackson State for Colorado, if you remember too. God
and
told him to go to Colorado.
Again, God, it's amazing how often God tells people to go where they make the most money. And so I tend to think that most guys are going to go wherever the money is the best. Now, what I do think Deion could do is if you're, let's say, a junior and you're thinking to yourself, man, I want to go get attention from scouts. I've got 1 year left in college. I'm not focused on the money I make right now. I'm focused on, hey, give me the best sounding board, the best jumping off point to go to the pros. I do think guys could be like, oh, Colorado's really cool. I think where he's going to do better is not in recruiting. I think he's going to, like in terms of 17 and 18-year-olds, I think he's going to do better in, hey, this is already an established player. I've got 1 year left in college. Where should I go? Oh, I'll go to Colorado. I think he'll do very, very well in the transfer portal.
Clay Travis with us on Hot Mic with Hudson and Withrow on the OutKick Network. Clay, I'll just make it simple here because we've got 3 minutes left. Could you see Saban retiring after this season, stepping away from coaching?
Sure. I mean, he doesn't seem happy, but he doesn't seem super angry. And what I mean by that is usually when Alabama's offensive line is awful, everybody focuses on how the quarterbacks are doing. They can't block anybody. And Saban doesn't seem, I watched that whole game against South Florida, the whole game against Texas. He doesn't seem furious on the sideline. And I wonder how much of that is because he is aware that he doesn't have a national championship caliber team. And he's almost stopping to smell the roses, which is a very not Nick Saban thing to do. And I also wonder, like, for Nick Saban, does he really want to be in the NIL era? Does he want to? I mean, the reason why he left the pros and went to college was because he didn't want to be dictated to by the players. I think a lot of guys who are in college football are going to look around in the next few years and say, basically, this is pro football, except I still get judged based on whether a guy gets arrested. Nobody ever gets arrested. Nobody in the NFL, by and large, judges a coach when a player does something stupid and gets arrested. But typically, the coach never loses his job. I mean, nobody did anything to Bill Belichick when suddenly it came out that Aaron Hernandez was a murderer. when your players get in trouble in college, you get fired eventually. And you're held accountable for their behavior by and large in a way that you aren't in the NFL. And I just wonder how many guys are going to look around and be like, man, I didn't know I was going to be doing salary cap. Didn't know I was going to be having to go glad handle and raise money so that we could get players. And I wonder how many coaches are just going to say, this is not really what I signed up for. And I think it's going to be more often the older coaches who just say, yeah, I like the coaching aspect and I like the players listening to me aspect. And both of those are being diminished when we have perpetual free agency and everybody has to get paid.
Clay, final 10 seconds. Give us your best bet of the weekend coming up.
The over on Kentucky at Vanderbilt. Blood bank guarantee, tap the vein. It is going, I think right now, 49.5. It's going to surge well over that. Love the over in that game.
You can bet this as if the game's already been played.
Tailing it right now.
Blood bank. Clay, thanks so much, man.
Appreciate you all. Have a good day.
Yeah, man.
Thanks,
you too.
Clay.
Clay Travis, OutKick's founder, joins us weekly. I'm looking at Chad jump on outkick.com/bet right now.
Yep.
He's pulling it up on Safari, and he's making that wager.
I don't waste time when I hear a bet that I like. Can't waste time, Hudson.
Blood bank guarantee. Tap the vein, Chad.
Clay said it's going to go up, 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 so I got to get it at 49.
It's been a crazy news day for the Chicago Bears. We'll hit that. Plus, let's get weird with Davey Hudson is next. Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow rolls on.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump, now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself.
I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. And I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay, why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro.
There's a Viking show, I think.
Okay.
Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
Because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell?
Yeah, baby, I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Glad you're with us. Our thanks to Clay Travis for joining us. Also, Dr. David Chao, Pro Football Doc, and Coach Lou Holtz, all throughout the show. If you miss any portions of the show, you can always find it on demand, youtube.com, outkick.com as well. And coming up next hour, Trent Dilfer will join us. That's in about 40 minutes from right now. Chad, crazy story and a presser and a news day for the Chicago Bears. But just based on different things, but the main one being Alan Williams, their defensive coordinator, has resigned unexpectedly. And he's done this after he missed practice and wasn't with the team unexpectedly in unknown circumstances. Matt Eberflus, he did not divulge any details about this. He just stated that he was taking over play calling duties on defense. You've got reports that police raided the home.
Yeah, not just the home. This is the report. This is from John Zaglau, who is a sports talk radio host in Chicago, Hudson. He claims that Hallis Hall was raided by the FBI this morning, as well as Alan Williams' residence. All happening this morning. Breaking, according to sources familiar with the situation, both Hallis Hall and Alan Williams' home have been raided in connection with an undisclosed incident. Alan Williams' home was raided Sunday night after the team's Week 1 loss. Hallis Hall was raided this morning. An undisclosed incident is interesting.
Well, Courtney Cronin, who covers the Bears for ESPN, reports that that is incorrect. A team spokesman, this is straight from her, a team spokesman addressed the rumors regarding Hallis Hall being raided today as false. We were also told that the police have not been to Hallis Hall in connection to Alan Williams. That's a report from ESPN's Courtney Cronin there. Since Alan Williams has released a statement, and now the former Bears defensive coordinator, upon his resignation, they've already removed his bio from the team website. And this is a screenshot of the paper a screenshot of the photo that was circulating on the paper that he wrote his resignation letter to. With great regret that I tender my resignation as the defensive coordinator of the Chicago Bears football club effective immediately, taking a step back to take care of my health and my family. I appreciate the opportunity to work with the Chicago Bears, a storied NFL franchise with a rich history. The McCaskey family's first class, second to none. I'd also like to thank Coach Matt Eberflus and General Manager Ryan Poles for giving me the opportunity to come to Chicago. I would like to also thank President Kevin Warren, the coaches and players for which I valued relationships and camaraderie. I value the NFL Shield and all that it stands for, and after taking some time to address my health, I plan to come back and coach again. That from Alan Williams, who is now the former DC of the Chicago Bears. So you've got one report saying that there was a raid on Hallis Hall and on Williams' home, and another report that says through a team spokesman of the Bears that is not true, that it's false in that regard.
It's crazy because for it not to be true, this guy has a lot of details that I'm not going to read if the Bears are saying it didn't happen. But the same sports talk host in Chicago has details on Matt Eberflus's reaction when Hallis Hall was raided. But again, if a spokesperson's saying it wasn't, then all we can go on right now is that Alan Williams' home was raided. This is crazy This is, as someone I saw on Twitter, right, this is kind of an Urban Meyer-like statement that I'm taking a step back to take care of the health of my health and family. Appreciate the opportunity. Wild. And I'm sure the details are going to start to flow out here soon about what exactly is going on, but certainly doesn't look good.
Well, you've also got Justin Fields on the same day who's having to walk back comments after he threw offensive coordinator Luke Getsy under the bus for his offensive struggles because he said comments on his play had felt robotic. That was a quote, a word that he used, and that the coaching could be the cause of that to spread far and wide. So you've got the Fields then quickly attempting to clarify, coming back for a second media meeting and addressed the media again in the locker room for a second time and said, I'm not blaming anything on the coaches. I'm never going to blame anything on the coaches. I'm not blaming anything on my teammates. Whatever happens in the game, I will take all the blame. Never will you hear anything out of my mouth that I blame on anybody else in this organization, my teammates. Never will you hear that. So I just want to clear that up. Just know that I need to play better. That's it, point blank. That's what I should have said in the first place, but I was trying to give you more details. That from Fields, who is off to a terrible start. The Bears are 0-2. And I said yesterday, Luke Getsy, it seems like he's trying to make Fields a pocket passer, which is not working out well.
It sounds almost like Fields was told, hey, let's walk you back up here to, not roll your coaches under the bus and make another statement.
Yeah.
It's a bad situation.
The unraveling.
The Alan Williams thing is a separate department of the bad in Chicago.
And he had been away from the team.
But this is a bad football team, a bad offense, and Justin Fields looks like a bad pick. And if not, he's in a really bad spot because they're not helping him at all to do the things that he's best at.
Well, you also have another reports about many higher up in the organization being frustrated with Matt Eberflus. So that's the other thing. I mentioned, we had an answer. Davey Hudson joins us. Davey, what was the question you asked about the proclamation, I think it was, about the college coach and what's going to happen? And I said Ryan Day is going to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears.
Oh, yeah. I was wanting to get really weird with it. No surprise there about the crazy coaching move you could see happen. That all stemmed from the reports that Ed Orgeron and Northwestern were in talks.
That's right. So, yeah, yes. And
this sounds like an Onion headline.
Which?
The Northwestern Ed Orgeron talks.
Oh, well, but that was circulating initially, that Ed O. And then Orgeron even had to clarify and say, no, he's not interested. Yeah. That was very Onion-like.
I joked when this first happened, and I said, hey, you want to go get a national championship winning coach at Northwestern? I mean, you want to talk about the worst possible cultural fit.
Right, yeah.
If Ed Orgeron's best possible cultural fit was LSU, which it was, with everything, and that's perfect. The one spot where he could have succeeded to that level, I'd say the worst is outside of Chicago at an academically elite university that's never won. That would be the worst possible fit for Ed Orgeron.
It was a weird report, a weird day.
But I'm here for it.
At Hallis Hall,
I'm here for it to watch it.
It's time to get weird with Davey Hudson.
And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Talking now.
Guys, it's been a fun day so far. Hopefully we can continue the journey. Our first story, we got a new world record.
Okay.
If you're interested, world's longest mullet. How long do you think that might be?
It's funny to me because it's just world's longest hair. And we're getting very cute with this.
No, a mullet is certainly styled a certain way.
According to the winner, there's 19 different types of mullets.
You cut the side of your hair a little bit less. Like I don't. Can we see it?
Yes, we can. We got a video that we're actually going to show. But there's no. I'll just speak over this. This is Miss Tammy Manis.
That's a mullet.
And Tammy
is the perfect name for this lady.
She hails from Knoxville, Tennessee. So that's my backyard.
Of course,
over there. But yes, an East Tennessee woman has set the record for the Guinness World Records book. The mullet is 5'8".
I mean, did she start growing this mullet in prison? Because one of those videos looks like she's in a jumpsuit, like she's in prison right there.
She said the mullet was born on February 9th, 1990.
It was born?
Well, I mean, that's when she decided to start it. And
when she started
This
growing
thing
hair.
lives and breathes, this mullet. It was born in 1990.
I just love the fact that
I love that
they're
it's
handing out world records for longest mullet. Do you think is it more of a Kentucky waterfall
think
or a
it's-
Mississippi mudflap?
That's definitely a Kentucky waterfall that we're witnessing there.
Okay.
My guess is that she lives closer to the Kentucky state line north of Knoxville. Is probably where she lives.
And her hair lives south?
I feel like this is sort of cheating.
Okay.
Because there's a record for longest hair. And it's like, oh, I'll just cut the side of my hair. And now I've got the longest mullet, even though I have no chance at reaching the longest hair ever. We're creating new world records. I don't love it.
It's one thing to devote yourself to the world's longest hair because there's different things you could do. But if you got a mullet, you're boxing yourself into a corner there. The one thing I'll say is, Chad, you mentioned it, and Tammy said when she's not breaking records, she is a public health nurse at the Knox County Health Department. So
okay. I wonder if that includes visiting the prison.
She will wear a braid.
It took her 33 years to grow this. Wow.
It's called dedication.
It feels like it should be longer after 33 years. I don't know why I'm so unimpressed with this woman and her mullet, but I'm just really turned off by the whole thing.
I'm just more
I feel like it
surprised.
should be even longer after 33 years.
I lived in Knoxville for basically 9 years before I made the move out here to join OutKick, and I have not seen this woman once in my life. So I'm kind of upset about that.
If this woman walked into a health clinic that you were at or any health facility, and she was the one with the syringe that had to take blood from you, would you allow it with that mullet?
Yeah, I wouldn't see the mullet because it's business in the front, Chad.
Yeah,
it's true. But if you saw her tail that was in between her legs, because that's what the mullet creates. She could throw it in this one photo.
But if
she's
it's
got
the
on
health
the
department,
side.
doesn't she have to
Does she have to
put the
put
hair
it up?
away?
I mean, how big is the bun on the top of her hair?
I mean,
if she does that, she's wearing a helmet on top of it.
I mean,
I think I'd request a different nurse, different healthcare worker.
Have you ever done that?
Request a different nurse?
No,
Yeah.
I haven't had to do that.
No.
That'd be very difficult for me to do.
Davey clearly has.
No, I haven't.
Oh, okay. No, I just try to get out of there as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
I would just fake being afraid of needles and say that I have to leave. I'm having a panic attack, and come back another day. I'd find out her schedule when she's not working and come back on that day. What else, Davey?
Guys, I don't know if you heard about this. It's been going on. It was eventually found. I will say that, just giving the spoiler away. But the missing F-35 fighter jet.
Yeah.
So this jet went missing
Did Alan
for
Williams
almost
steal it?
24 hours. No, what had happened was they had departed from Charleston, South Carolina, and the pilot ended up ejecting himself due to, they said, a mishap or a trying to think of what the other word was.
Emergency?
They didn't end up using emergency, and they've been very, I guess.
Is this what happened to Goose in the first Top Gun?
They haven't been very forthcoming with the information.
Nothing wrong with the
why.
aircraft, and then he ejected himself on purpose? Is that what they're insinuating?
Mishap or malfunction in which the pilot ended up ejecting himself. They did say, again, they've not been putting out a lot. There's a lot of answers that people are wanting to get on this stealth fighter jet. But the thing was, whenever it goes missing for over 24 hours, people are like, where is it at? At first, there were rumors. It kind of goes back to the missing sub, where it's just like, is it sitting at the bottom of the ocean? Well, we later found out it was destroyed. We did find out this plane ultimately crashed, but there for a while, people are thinking, I mean, it's in stealth mode. There's no way they're able to currently track it, and it's either crashed into the ocean. There was even one theory that it managed to get into space and is just outside of Earth's atmosphere.
Is the pilot alive?
Yes.
Okay.
That's the other funny part of the story is when he ejected, the parachute just landed in a residential area. So it's just there's just this pilot that's just ejected himself, just going into like somebody's backyard.
But they couldn't find the aircraft.
It's just in the ocean, right?
Well, no, that's what everybody was thinking. They eventually found it 24 hours later, and it was in a rural area and had obviously it was just debris is what they found at that point.
Yeah, so it just crashed in the perfect spot where no one saw or heard it.
Yeah.
Okay. That still blows my mind that someone doesn't see.
I know something falling from the sky.
Yes.
And finally, guys,
big country out there.
Yeah,
it landed in a place where someone would see a UFO.
Speaking of UFOs, we had talked about the alien bodies that Mexico had presented before its Congress. And a Mexican report comes back and says that there was no human assembly involved in these aliens. So, again, it's like I think of it as I think you should leave. It's like we're all trying to find the guy who did this, and Tim Robinson just pulls up. It's like, yeah, we know it's you guys were doing something.
Well,
as to what extent?
What is this outlet that reported this? That there's no human assembly done.
It was the Mexican researchers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, good.
Researchers or idiots?
A lot of things I want to say right now.
Jose Benitez.
Yeah.
Of Mexican Navy's
Let's
Health
have Steven
Sciences
Spielberg
Research Institute.
I go to Mexico for all my alien
he
research.
discovered ET, not Mexico, not Peru or
The
wherever
world's
this is.
experts on fake aliens, the Mexicans.
They too.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafting flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey.
Welcome into OutKick the show. I am Clay Travis, your fearless leader. I am going to continue to argue that sports is one of the great unifying forces in all of American life. ESPN is a sinking ship. Democrats are now the party of the white, woke college graduate.
We live in a land of participation trophies.
You gotta lean into the turns. You really gotta lean into the turns.
When Leah Thomas walked in that first day, it got silent, and every girl was uncomfortable.
Very difficult to go back-to-back years in the NFL with the number 1 overall pick.
Is it fair for people to be upset with Barbie?
I've been out of LA long enough to have forgotten that libs, no matter how ridiculous the scenario, are gonna live. Another week of inflation, another week with Biden with COVID, and another set of losers to crown. People don't watch the WNBA on TV, in person, on a plane, on a train, on a bus, or on purpose. I mean, what have you seen firsthand of how this has affected you in the plant and your fellow employees? Under Joe Biden, the Taliban has retaken Afghanistan. Putin has invaded Ukraine. So if there was ever a time for freaking aliens to inhabit and conquer Earth, now would be that time.
We've seen coaches throw water bottles. We've seen coaches act like idiots. We've seen coaches slap other coaches. But I think if you're involved in carjacking, you're inherently a rotten human. The level of stupid that sometimes gets on our YouTube chat just gives me a headache. You're born a male, play with males. You're born a female, play with females. Don't at me about it. The American people are being cheated. We, ladies and gentlemen, are being cheated.
There's no doubt in my mind he could have caught the ball in his back pocket if he'd been running. Blowing a lead and losing a game is 100 times more lasting and painful in some clubhouses than losing the game 15-0. If I had to start a list in the last 10 years of horrible underachievers, he's at the top.
We were directly impacted by the whole Leah Thomas thing, and we were able to see you guys on the ground with your signs supporting. That was huge.
They were saying, oh, it's only 1 or 2. That's rubbish, and we all know that's rubbish. Once those trans-identifying males were able to succeed, it just encouraged others.
Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Bold taste of the Southern legend.
Just like that, the final hour is here on the Wednesday edition of Hot Mic with Hudson and Withrow across the OutKick Network. Glad you're with us. If you're listening to this great radio partner, we say thank you. If you're streaming us live on YouTube, OutKick.com, appreciate that as well. On YouTube, you can join Chad in the chat for the final hour here.
Chat's been good today.
Good, yeah.
Very clever.
Trent Dilfer joins us, Coach Trent Dilfer, in 20 minutes from now. A lot to discuss with him, who always has something to say, Chad, on practically anything involving football, life, advice, all of it.
I just watched, I ordered a taco in here.
Yeah.
And just watched apparently a new girl that works here trying just as hard as she could to open a door that would not open. And I'm sitting there looking at Matt. I'm like, Matt, can you please get up and help her out? Yeah. He was trying to signal her, and she was like trying to go through the door the entire time. The awareness was with Matt.
No, I'm saying up here.
It was not with her. Yeah, I was like, that thing's not going to open. She kept trying, though. I'll give her credit. I haven't seen effort like that in a while.
I've got Chad, coming up later this week, we've got a segment, Wrong Team Favored.
Yep.
I was looking at some spreads, scrolling last night, and I noticed that UAB is a 41-point underdog to Georgia.
Do you think about going UAB on Wrong Team Favored?
Can you imagine?
41 big points. I think you've just shut the door on the competition.
Yeah.
If you win that one.
Dilfer can't wait to play between the hedges. We'll get his take on UAB and the so far so good his time there and what he's seen across the college landscape involving the portal. He's cool with it, by the way. Remember last time we had him on?
He is and he isn't.
Well, he doesn't want tampering.
Yeah.
But he's okay with a player helping his NFL stock and financial stock by jumping up to the next level of the SEC caliber program, Big 12, whatever, from UAB. It's interesting.
I am interested. We'll talk a little bit more about some NIL developments going on throughout this segment. If you can get to a system where there's some entitled programs out there based on what's happening with NIL, and if there's not a good culture and structure in place, I could see a route for the UABs of the world that feature, talented football players, but not to the level of talent as some bigger programs that can rise up and be the more determined
top
team,
level,
the stronger team. Similar to kind of what we see in college basketball with, guys who stick around for 4 or 5 years in one program and play together for a while, and they can rise up and beat the big boys that are younger and more talented.
Which we're seeing
when they get to the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, you're right.
I wonder if we can get to more of that in major college football if NIL continues this route. So we'll ask Trent Dilfer about that.
If you haven't taken your shot with PointsBet, now's the perfect moment. The big reason why, exclusively for first-time PointsBet users, grab this unique offer. Right now, new PointsBet users can get up to $1,000 in second-chance bets. If your first bet doesn't go as planned, PointsBet has your back with a second chance. Get this offer by visiting OutKick.com/bet. You complete the registration process with PointsBet and make your first bet. If your first bet happens to lose, that's when the second chance bets come into play. Remember, terms and conditions apply. You got to be 21 or older in legal gambling states. Gambling problem, 1-800-GAMBLER. Head over to OutKick.com/bet right now and snag this offer, OutKick.com/bet. Chad, Lincoln Riley at USC. We mentioned yesterday we haven't heard much of USC because all the attention's on Colorado. Lincoln Riley, though, is the new school offensive-minded coach, paired with Williams and the other QBs that he's developed or coached. And he's new school in regards to offensive philosophy. He does all the fun things well. Guys want to play on his offense.
Oh, yeah.
He's not new school in terms of media restrictions and guidelines and transparency. Way different in comparing Deion Sanders and his media policies where, I still haven't seen him in a situation where there aren't more cameras around him that are visible in the day-to-day operations, or a camera and a producer in the coaches meeting that they're then tweeting out. It's totally a 180-degree turn at USC, apparently, because a beat reporter for the program covering the USC football team So he's apparently violated guidelines for reporting something that happened in plain sight and right in front of him as he watched. There's a story that Luca Evans published last week about freshman running back Quentin Joyner. And the issue I take with this is he's been suspended by the media relations team at USC. Lincoln Riley was asked about it, and he said, look, it was enough to get him suspended. I don't want to go into detail on it. But he's got a harmless conversation between one freshman and a fellow freshman, and it occurred in front of reporters, but before, quote-unquote, media availability. And so if you're not pre-packaging something and doing it based on what happens in media availability, if you roll it out there to the masses, to the fan base, even if it's harmless, you're getting suspended for your access. It's not available to you at USC. Meanwhile, Colorado, totally different. Arms are wide open for any and all media outlets to come and report, say whatever they want to. Deion will respond to it, sunglasses and all. And it's a fun environment. I don't find this very welcoming. And when I think about why this would be, well, he's got the Heisman Trophy winning quarterback on his team. He also has a lousy defense. And expectations are extremely high at USC. And, Chad, we're going into week 4. And other than the week 0 matchup, have we talked about USC and the Trojan program?
Well, they haven't played anyone.
But I mean, there are a lot of programs who haven't.
Yeah, we'll talk about them when they play Colorado. Yeah,
But
they've yet most teams have played at least one Power 5 game so far. USC's had Cakewalk City up to this point. And I will say, I mean, yeah, Deion, it seems welcoming, but I don't think Ed Werder felt too welcomed after their game at TCU.
Well,
in the press conference, I don't know that he's Mr. Media friendly as much as he is.
Maybe he doesn't feel too welcome, but the media frenzy happened after that moment.
Yeah, well, the
Not
media
before.
frenzy was there for that game as well. Do you know, by the way, you know who's doing all the video documentation for Deion Sanders?
ESPN?
Deion Sanders Jr. On the 60 Minutes profile, it's his production crew. Deion's employed him to follow him around with cameras everywhere.
Okay.
So those cameras you see, that's Deion Jr.
They've got
that's leading that
30
charge.
of them, 30 plus.
Hudson, it just seems so small time to me. This whole USC story.
But you have to, whatever happens during media availability is open for publishing. Anything outside of it is closed. And tell me when media availability is shut off at Colorado. I'm just thinking of the perception here and the visibility, the hype, the recruiting aspect, expectations at one place where they can control how much or how much access or how little access you have, versus whatever you want to do Colorado-wise. You're going to have it, and it's going to be entertaining. That's the other part of it. It's going to be entertaining instead of just like, he's suspended and probably for good reason. Crazy.
Yeah,
I'm surprised about Lincoln Riley more than I am USC.
Well, and Lincoln Riley was asked about it, and he said, well, what was it? I'm not going to go into details. And he said something like, we'll just say that it rose to the level where we felt like we needed to act in suspending the reporter. Don't you talk to the person first? Like, I don't. This rush to like, okay, your credential is revoked. To me, Hutton, it just feels.
Well, here's what the
you
reporter.
should be bigger than that. You should be more big time.
But here's what the reporter Evans reported, and it was a conversation again outside of media availability, whatever. But it mentioned the two freshmen, how they were nervous to speak with journalists, and they hadn't done much of that so far in their careers. So Evans, the reporter, went to Joyner's father, the freshman's father, on the phone, and even his dad thought the conversation was funny and was accurate and spot on, and he went with it. That's again, harmless story. Father's backing it up, and Lincoln Riley and the USC football program through media relations are suspending this dude's access, and he's a beat writer for the Trojan program.
Yeah, it's weird. I feel like there's also, and we don't know. Look, I think USC's wrong to do this regardless. I also think there's probably more to it in the past with this reporter that led to this, but they're not talking about.
Maybe.
There's some sort of disagreement It doesn't feel like something you would do just after one time, one mistake.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, especially considering just the landscape of what we're seeing works and what doesn't. And USC is going to be on the national spotlight, in the national spotlight in a couple of weeks because of Colorado and because of Boulder.
Well,
and prime
look,
time.
and a big part of what's going on is NIL, right? And the celebrity status of Colorado and other things going on. This is going to lead to more and more criticism and quicker anger around programs and their fan bases. We're seeing it in a number of areas. In fact, Tom Brady, had something to say about Shedeur Sanders and his expensive car and what he should be doing. Here was Tom Brady on the Let's Go podcast.
One question before I go, Tom, do you think a college kid needs a Phantom, like a Rolls Royce?
Nah, hey, no, it's not a Phantom. It's a Rolls Royce Cullinan.
I think he needs to get his ass in the film room and spend as much time in there as possible.
Thank you,
less
Tom.
time in the car and more time in the film room.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate
And I
that.
seen you have one too, Tom. Don't think I seen.
I was just a rental. Hey, I had a few bucks in my pocket at that point.
Tom Brady having to tell Shedeur Sanders, that's a mentor, and also helping out his friend Deion and his dad by saying, get your ass in the film room instead of in the car, and says, I won a few Super Bowls and was in the NFL for a while and a college grad by the time I was buying cars like that. I feel like the need for Tom Brady to remind Shedeur Sanders of that is probably an issue and a problem with entitlement that I'm sure that most of Deion Sanders' kids probably possess, even though they're very good players. And Shedeur Sanders is having a heck of a year as a quarterback. But here's the main point that I think is going to be driven home when teams start to struggle. We saw this with Connor Cook at Missouri. After the game, and Missouri, by the way, wins on a 61-yard walk-off field goal against Kansas State. But during that game at home, Missouri Tiger fans booed Connor Cook, the quarterback at Missouri. So what happens post-game? Eli Drinkwitz, their head coach, comes back and says, Brady Cook, by the way, the quarterback there. I knew I was saying, when I was saying Connor, I was like, that didn't sound right. Eli Drinkwitz comes out and says, boo me, not the kid. To which fans are now going to start to say, why just you? He's getting paid too. You're all getting paid. I'll boo whoever the hell I want. And then it'll go from there. I agree with Eli Drinkwitz and what he's saying. You should boo the coach first and foremost. Now, Missouri fans come back and say, well, we were booing you for playing him and not just him. We're booing everyone at that point. But fans are going to be quicker to rush to anger and judgment when things go south. And at a place like, let's say, a Tennessee, where if it goes south, where you are prominent in the NIL space, and I don't think this is always going to be fair, there's going to be a segment of every fan base that starts to say, well, see, this is the problem. We've got entitled players. All they care about is money. They're distracted by how much they're making and what they're doing, and they're not focused on football. I believe that 97% of the time, this is not going to be warranted. But what I believe is not going to matter because fans now can see what players make, what they're wearing, what they're driving, and they're going to automatically assume this isn't college football of my childhood. This guy doesn't care about winning. This guy doesn't care about working. This guy doesn't care about competition. He cares about getting paid. And what Gene Smith said today in that NIL hearing about players demanding $5,000 to go on a visit to The Ohio State University, get ready. Buckle up. There's going to be more and more of this. And Hutton, I think fans are going to be quicker and quicker to rush to anger and boo players because now they're in on the take too. And I think that a lot of them have been in on the take for a while.
Yeah.
It's just now more reported.
Well,
like with the Shedeur Sanders situation.
Yeah, but I think to me, some players driving around in certain cars, I'm like, what is going on here? Spencer Rattler in the G-Wagon. That's NIL.
Yeah.
And he's probably given that in order to do endorsements or whatever. Meanwhile, Shedeur Sanders driving a Rolls Royce doesn't shock me at all.
He could be doing that even if he wasn't playing football.
Yeah. Deion Sanders Jr. probably has.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't surprise me. I think it's crazy that he knew that Brady was driving one. He's like, I saw you driving one, Tom. The other thing, too, though, with what Gene Smith is saying in the $5,000, roles were reversed prior to NIL, where you would leave with a McDonald's bag of $5,000 if the player or the parents would.
And look,
and it's unclear: is it the player demanding it, or is it the family,
or is it a rep?
That exactly.
Of some sort.
That's the other aspect of this.
Look,
that
I think
I'm
ultimately,
worried about.
like the culture, the coaching, and the leadership on the rosters will win out, even if everybody's making money at certain schools. But if that isn't in place and isn't good, you're going to have more Texas A&Ms. And to me, that is the shining example of when NIL went wrong. They spent a ton of money on a recruiting class, and I don't think the powers that were in charge were in a strong enough leadership position mixed with a lack of leadership on the roster that led to a lot of guys leaving after 1 year because they took the bag. And they were most interested in that. I remember talking to Tom Luganbill, and he kind of hinted to, are you getting guys for the right reason when you go all in on that, right? Like maybe the guys that went there that are top prospects aren't in it for the right reasons, and they got too many of those guys in one class. I think there's some validity to all of that.
But just keep in mind, Saban mentioned A&M. Why? Because he's after the same dudes.
Yep.
And who sucks right now? Not just Texas A&M. The perception is flipped. So the idea that it was just A&M that wanted to take these guys and pay them, well, they paid them, but they certainly were not the only major school recruiting them.
Yeah, Alabama was bidding too. They just got outbid.
Taking the wrong guy. I mean, you could clearly tell Bama wanted them too. Trent Dilfer, always opinionated. He joins us next.
I'm here at the Big Machine Music City Grand Prix, but that's not the only big race that's on people's minds. Let's go talk about it.
There's no way Biden can win again. There's just no way. Even the people that voted for him because they didn't like Trump now at least have to see like senile, not all there. Probably won't be alive for 4 more years.
Are you a Trump guy? Or are you a DeSantis guy? Or someone else?
I don't like any of them.
Who's your dream candidate? Who would you want to run?
Myself. I think the best candidates probably are smart enough not to run.
I just hope there's somebody that's young enough to care about the country instead of their politics.
My fear is they get Gavin Newsom from California. I think it would be the new cool vote for the younger people, and that's what I don't like.
Who do you think on the Republican side would be able to take on Gavin Newsom?
Great question. As a Republican registered, I love what Trump's body of work did, but they're just out to get him and destroy him, and we won't get things done, which is crappy for me to say. I thought DeSantis was going to be the guy. Trump only has 4 years left. He cannot fix everything that just happened in 4 years. And he's going to be battling indictments and all these false stuff for the next 4 years. We won't get anything done. And it'll just be the stalemate in America. That's why I almost don't want him in. But if he is the leading candidate, that's who I'm going to vote for.
Is there any Democrat that you would vote for, consider voting for?
Absolutely not.
What about RFK Jr.?
No.
Who should our first female president be?
Michelle Obama, of course. Okay. Yeah.
I'm going to go with Harambe 2024.
We have the 2024 presidential race coming up, and I wanted to see who you thought your favorite TV characters would vote for. Homer Simpson, like who do you think he would vote for?
Donald Trump, all the way.
Vito Corleone.
Whoa. Whoever advances the cause of the Corleone family. Yeah.
Tony Soprano. If Tony Soprano is voting in the 2024 election, who do you think he's voting for?
I'm going to go Ron DeSantis.
Okay. Why do you think that?
Just seems like a Ron DeSantis kind of guy.
Is this a meatball joke that you're trying to make right now? What about Homer Simpson?
Homer would vote for Biden because he's a dope.
Who do you think Napoleon Dynamite would vote for?
That's a good question. I actually don't know.
There's a right answer here.
He's voting for himself or Pedro. There's a Viking show, I think. Maybe that's Hulu. I don't know.
So in the Viking show, whatever the main character is, who do you think they would vote for in 2024?
Probably a goat or a dog.
I think we have one of those in office right now. So who do you think Jon Snow would vote for in this upcoming election?
I'm going to say Donald J. Trump.
Why do you think so?
because Game of Thrones is all about drama, and Trump comes with the drama, baby.
Would you vote for Trump from jail?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, probably. Because at that point, what else do you have to lose?
Okay, would you vote for Trump from a jail cell? Hell yeah, baby! I will get Trump out of jail.
Would you vote for Trump in jail?
Oh, yeah.
Based as
The thing that Trump needs to remember is there's another political figure that said, I don't recall very well.
Yeah.
And that's all he's got to say.
Is there like a dream candidate, someone that you think could like save us all?
Yeah, Jesus.
Amen to that.
Thanks for being with us for Hot Mic with Hudson with Row across the OutKick Network. 6th and Peabody, our location, with Yeehaw Beer and Old Smoky Moonshine. Loving the start to the college football season, Chad. And we've certainly had our next guest on several times to discuss all things football. And
Never dull. Our next guest.
Never. And always love our conversations with Trent Dilfer, head coach at UAB. Coach, good to see you. Hope things are well.
I've been better. I've been 1-2 in a while, but
that's fair.
No.
That's true.
No, I am loving the battle. It's been amazing. Love these boys. The staff's great. Love the city. Just not playing the type of football that we need to play to win ball games.
I try not to be surprised whenever I hear you say something that I'm like, well, that's refreshing. You've done that with NIL and players that will go up to the next level, and you say, hey, if it helps your NFL career, who am I to step in the way of the player? I had no clue that you have only been to one SEC game, and it was on a recruiting trip for your daughter, and you expect the atmosphere at Georgia to surpass that of the Super Bowl you played in.
I really do. I mean, when I was at Bryant-Denny for Alabama Ole Miss, I can't remember what year it was. My daughter was a junior in high school. She was on a recruiting trip there, and I was blown away. I had never seen anything like that before. So I'm expecting this atmosphere to be amazing. You know, Super Bowls are very corporate.
Yeah.
You know, just the pageantry that goes to college football in general, and then SEC pageantry is like none other. So my little experience with it, I was blown away, and I'm excited to experience it again Saturday.
And Trent, this is why it's refreshing, because I don't hear coaches, and you can tell me if you're not doing this, but you're saying that you're going to soak it in and appreciate the moment and the atmosphere. I don't hear coaches do that, talk about doing that, or even attempt to do that because they're so preoccupied with things. Is that what you're saying? Like you expect it to be great and you're going to appreciate it because you're there?
I think you can appreciate it, but still be locked in.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these coaches didn't play 14 years in the NFL too, and play in front of crowded stadiums and do this for a living. So, you know, I've been in big environments. I've played in big games. I've learned over time that you do have to appreciate what you're in, and it doesn't take away from your focus or your ability to perform. And my job as a coach is far less strenuous than it was as a player. So yeah, I think it's fine to take it all in and appreciate it. And I love college football. I love the pageantry of it all, like I've said. And I think I want our boys to experience it too and enjoy it. You know, we have a nice atmosphere, protective stadium, but it's nothing like it's going to be in Athens. So it'll be an exciting opportunity for them as well.
You mentioned your 14-year NFL career. Certainly Deion Sanders had a good NFL career also, getting a lot of attention at Colorado. Not bad, right? I think he's a pretty good player. Pretty good baseball player also, that Deion. Is this the start of a trend in college football with the way things are going with NIL and everything we're seeing? Getting attention on a program is important. You've been successful as a coach at a different level. Now you're coaching college football as an NFL vet. We're seeing Deion Sanders. Are we going to see more NFL veteran guys break into college coaching with the way things are trending?
Well, one, I feel bad for Deion every time my name gets associated with his. You know, he was a Hall of Fame player. He's obviously doing an incredible job of his approach, what he's doing at Colorado, serving those kids. People give him a bad rap for the prime part of it, but that dude loves his players. He loves his coaches. He's in it for the right reasons. I think the answer could be yes if they have the same motivation that Prime and I have. You know, one of the things that separates, I think, both of us is we're not necessarily doing this for ourselves. We're both very other-centered. We saw a gap that needed to be filled with serving young people through the vehicle of football. We've actually communicated about this exact thing. And, you know, I don't think you could just be an ex-NFL player and go coach because you played. You got to know a lot about the game. You got to know a lot about relationships. You have to have enough sophistication to handle the administrative bureaucracy part of it. Like there's a lot that goes into this job more than just having played the game. In fact, some of the worst coaches I've ever been around are guys that played at a high level because they can't communicate it. You know, people forget that Prime also coached at high school football. He coached at the HBCU level, so he has that yellow school bus experience, and I think that's a very valuable experience for many of us. Now there are guys like Chad Pennington and John Kitna, Jeremy Macklin. You know, there's guys out there that are coaching, doing a really good job. And yes, I could see college hiring them because they do it for the right reasons. But I don't think you could just play a long time and think that makes you a coach.
The head coach at UAB is Trent Dilfer. He joins us on Hot Mic with Hudson and Withrow. When you took the job, you knew there would be challenges and hurdles and a growing period. What were you not prepared for? Is there one big thing?
No, not really. I have 3 daughters that were Division I athletes. One still is. 2 of the older 2 husbands were Division I athletes, so I was able to walk kind of with them as they were playing college sports. I knew kind of what the college vibe was. My youngest daughter's fiance is a football player at a university, so I kind of understood what this job was all about. I have a lot of friends in the industry. I wouldn't say I've been super surprised by a lot of stuff. There's been adjustments. I've had to grow. I've had to change some ways I do things to maybe resonate with this demographic more than the last. But I don't think I haven't really been surprised by anything.
I'm sure your coaching tenure at Lipscomb Academy gave you a boost in how to approach certain players. Like I'm sure there are times every coach wants to peel paint off the wall, but chooses not to. And maybe the approach during several of the Elite 11 camps were different than how you approach players now. I'd be fascinated to know if you've run into anything where you're like, man, I really do appreciate the time at the high school level because the players I'm coaching now, previous jobs helped me prepare for the mindset and mentality of the player, which has to be way different than a decade ago, 20 years ago, whenever it might have been.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the number one thing I'd focus on, relationships. I've always believed it's relationship business. I've benefited from guys like Tony Dungy and Clyde Christensen and Jim Zorn. I can go on and on, Marvin Lewis, guys that really did relationships well in my career. And I look up to them and try to handle it the same way. If you have authentic relationships with your players, you develop trust. And when you develop trust with them, there's connection. That's true whether it was at the Elite 11 with these, 5-star quarterbacks, whether it was with, little Johnny at Lipscomb or the 5-star guy or Edwin Spillman at Lipscomb,
right.
Whatever it is. It's still relationships. It's relationships here, and I've worked really hard on those. I think my players would tell you that. I think the difference is that, and this is going to maybe sound like a criticism, but it's not. College players have opinions. High school players don't really have opinions, right? They're so in awe of how much better they're getting every day that they're kind of salivating for the next day's information to get better. Whereas a college player, they're skeptical. They may have been successful doing it another way. They may have some strong beliefs of how a scheme should be run or a technique should be. And I think you have to earn their trust before you get them to understand that, man, their way isn't a bad way, but it's not our way. and our way has to fit all together. And I think that's been something that, I've had to work extra hard on. I think giving them the why, I constantly harp on my staff about, don't just tell them to do stuff, give them the why behind why we're asking them to do stuff. The better they understand it, the better they understand the whole picture, the more successful they're going to be. But that's really the only difference in terms of the audience. Now the coaching audience is different too. Remember, we're recruiting year round.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's a dynamic that I knew was there. I'm not surprised by it, but it definitely is something that, you have to constantly balance, is caring for your own team, not necessarily caring about your next team. And there is this mentality in college football that a lot of coaches just care more about the next roster than the roster they have right now. So I don't want that to be the case. I want to recruit as well as anybody in the country, but I'm not at the deficit of our existing roster. We want to serve these kids. We want to make sure we get them prepared to win games each week and never compromise that by recruiting the next roster.
It's always been really easy to see the care you put into your players and your program, and you are an emotional guy. I'm curious about getting guys to play with emotion but not be emotional on the field. How much of it is going the opposite direction? If you see your guys being emotional, you have to be the calm in the storm. If you feel like your guys are complacent or not getting after it to a level, then you have to be the disruptor at that point. How much of this is psychology when you are the head coach and you're the one all the players are looking at trying to feed off of you?
That's a great question. Maybe the best question I've got since I've got this job, because it's so relevant. One of the reasons we're not playing very good is we're an emotional roller coaster. And even my high school team had better emotional regulatory skills than this one does. So we're constantly working on that. One of the interesting things is I'm not the coordinator for offense. And Sione, my defense coordinator, pointed this out to me. He's like, the kids don't get to see you as the coordinator like they did at Lipscomb. And you were edgy when you were the coordinator. And now I'm kind of more, I would say, outside of a handful of, I wouldn't call them blow-ups, but very poignant discussions with the program. I've pretty much been on a scale of 1 to 10 emotionally, probably like a 6, 7. I have good energy. I like to have fun. I'm constantly communicating, but I don't really go up and down. And I've had to do that because the team is such a roller coaster with emotions. And I'm really I'm seeking that one out right now. I guess I'm kind of talking through this to you guys, but I'm really trying to figure out what the balance is. Do I need to be edgier? Do I need to be a little more intense in practice, or do I need to be calmer and balance their emotional roller coasters? I don't know. That is something that I'm trying to grow daily at. I know it'd become more matter of fact. I explained to the team the other day, like I was spoiled with my kids. They kind of, when I told them to do something the first time, they did it. I didn't have to keep asking them to do it over and over and over again. And I kind of expect, and my staff at Lipscomb, I said it once and they knew I was serious and they got it done. I find myself here, like, I'll say something, I expect it to be done. I expect them to know that I'm not going to say it a second time, yet it's not necessarily resonating like it did my last 2 experiences. So I'm learning that one daily, and it's something I'm trying to grow with.
Well, I knew you'd have a good answer to that, and you did not disappoint. And I heard Vanderbilt coach Clark Lee in a press conference after they lost to UNLV saying, we got to figure out how to get off the emotional roller coaster. And we're not getting off that emotional roller coaster at times. I wonder how this got to be so hard for a coach. How much of it is the kids just have to figure it out, and players have to figure it out on their own to do it, and there's nothing I can do to get my team to understand this until they do it?
I think there's some of that. I mean, I don't know if I've ever talked to you guys about this, but the number one thing I look for when I'm hiring somebody, and partly recruiting too, is a term that I coined years ago called figured outness. I do think it's a trait that you can learn, and it can differentiate you. Like, if you don't need to be babysat through stuff, if you can just figure it out on your own, you have a distinct advantage over your competition. I do think there's some of that. These kids just have to figure out some of the stuff on their own. Now, I do think when you sign up to be a coach, you also sign up to communicate the same thing over and over and over again. And if you're a good coach, you find different ways of doing it. So your voice doesn't get old, doesn't run dry. And I think they're young enough where they need to be reminded daily of how their habits emotionally will not just affect their football, but will affect their life. It'll affect their marriages. It'll affect their parenting. And I tell them stories about myself. You know, my emotions hurt me as a player in my career. And I tell them all the time that I don't want them to make the same mistakes that I made as a player. So I'm just trying to find creative ways of helping them understand that their emotions can be a good thing, but they also can be a very bad thing sometimes. So we've done a lot of different things. We have a lot of speakers come in. We've had a lot of human performance type stuff. I'm constantly reminding them of things. And I think eventually it will stick. You know, if we could do what we did at Lipscomb with that group, these kids are more mature at this stage. We're better than we were year one when I went there. We know how this process works, and we expect to have some success this year, but we know we're going to have ultimate success down the road.
Coach Trent Dilfer of the UAB Blazers, for the first time in program history, they'll take on a #1 ranked team in the country whenever they take on Georgia under the lights between the hedges at Sanford Stadium. The schedule is stacked. Some really good programs in the AAC. Tulane comes up, then you've got South Florida, UTSA, Memphis, Florida Atlantic. It goes on and on. It may not feel like it from where you sit. We're enjoying the 30,000-foot view, though, Trent, of watching what's going on there. And here's to the next visit. You always deliver. We always enjoy the chats.
I appreciate you guys. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
There's Coach Trent Dilfer as we roll on Hot Mic.
What you're experiencing is the bold taste of a Southern legend. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey, authentic Tennessee mountain-style spirits. We believe in crafty flavors that were born from tradition but defy expectation. And pioneering a new experience with every sip. Because if it doesn't do this, it ain't this. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Come on. Old Smoky Moonshine and Whiskey. Taste of a Southern legend.
Our thanks to Trent Dilfer for joining us. Been a stacked show today. We've got it tomorrow as well. From one quarterback to another. Our quarterback at OutKick is Donovan McNabb, the 5 spot. You can catch every Tuesday and Friday at OutKick.com, as well as Facebook, X, and on YouTube. It's available every Tuesday and Friday. He'll join us tomorrow, Chad. Really looking forward to this.
Yeah, I've had a chance to check out his first episode of the podcast with Armando Salguero. Really good. It's going to be a must-watch for NFL fans. And Donovan, we know from our experience with him at the Super Bowl, will be great with us tomorrow. So looking forward to his visits here on Hot Mic as well. Really interested in what Trent Dilfer has to say at all times. But that has got to be so difficult. If you are in what to begin with is already an emotional sport, right? An emotion-driven sport in football, to try to either corral your team at a certain time or get them going and knowing exactly what they need. Kirby Smart had a great story about this, Hutton, about what he wanted to do at halftime on Saturday.
Well, he wanted to go in at halftime of the South Carolina game and peel paint off the wall. He wanted to lay in and cuss them out.
Down 14-3 at halftime.
Yes.
At home.
Down 11 and said, I'm going to go in here and lay into these guys because we're not playing like we should be playing. And the opposite happened because they had a team psychologist or someone that came up. I don't know if it's with the team. It was
their sports
Georgia,
psychologist that they have on staff.
and said, "Hey, I wouldn't do that. I would tone it down and just discuss, how you get back in this game in this moment." And he listened to them. He went in and simply said, "Hey, we're going to go back out here and we're going to do this, 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 this," and then they did it. They stopped Spencer Rattler and company, and meanwhile they picked it up on offense and scored on 6 consecutive possessions. Not bad. And I find it, I'm intrigued just from this angle. Kirby Smart listened to someone and then in the moment, toned it down. It did not post game, not during the week, but at halftime. And after that first half, and after doing that at home, not on the road at South Carolina, at home, that type of performance, and then turned it around the way they did. And I don't see many coaches doing that just in the perception of, okay, in the moment, are they going to listen to a psychologist, right? I don't think so. And I'm thinking of...
Because your thought is, I know my team better than you do. So I'm the psychologist.
Right. Here. Or he's certainly known for his defense. Jimbo Fisher is known for his offense. Jimbo, to me, doesn't listen to outside advice when it comes to that offense or what to do with the team. He is now, based on the coaches that they've brought in the offseason, and specifically Petrino. But you get my point here. In the moment, he toned it down when he wanted to go in with a rage.
I just think that has to be so super difficult because, you are living and dying with every moment, as the coach, obviously. Yeah. But to not display that and to be able to hide it, or also to be able to turn it up when you feel like we're lethargic, right? I need to lay into them now.
And you're coming off of an era of the last couple of years where you had the team that would do that. You had the quarterback that would do that. And now you realize you don't have that same makeup and moxie, and it's going to take a different approach.
Well, we could talk to Trent for, hours about all this stuff. I'm also curious how much a head coach at that level has to coach their coaches on things like this. Yeah, they're seeing things. It's like, hey, chill out a little bit.
That's a great,
because there's always the hot head coach. I feel like everyone fits like an archetype of a coach. You got the hot head, you got the fun-loving guy. Every assistant's got their own role. The real quiet guy who's more calm, laid back. But when you're a coach, you're either seeing, hey, I need you to turn it up with this group and lay into them right now if they're being too calm, or settle down. We're all freaking out there. And we need to be more calm for our guys in this moment.
Well, and he's got I would expect he's hiring coaches that are like him in the mental makeup, right?
Yeah.
Because he mentioned, if he's hiring someone for a business, he's got a criteria, figure it out.
I think deep down they're like him, but I think it'd be a mistake to hire a bunch of people who have your same personality.
Yeah, but you don't know. I just think of your first staff, and that wasn't his first staff because he's coached. But you see, if you finally get the gig and you want everyone on the same tone and tenor, and that's not that's not the right way to go about it because you do need a little good cop, bad cop, right? Like, but meanwhile, like the emotional factor of Dilfer is different than the hype factor of Deion Sanders. In the comparison, there's no one like primetime.
No,
but
and I didn't mean to make it a comparison like they're the same
I
player
wasn't
or
saying that
celebrity,
either.
but they're both guys who went through high school ranks as a longtime former player in the NFL, and then pretty quickly got into FBS level college football.
I'm not saying it because it was wrong to compare, but I think the mentality is different. Where Deion's coming in immediately and be like, if you're not good enough, you're out of here. We're going to tell you to leave and hit the portal. Hit the portal. Meanwhile, I think Trent is more of developing a culture and a player over a period of time, right? He gets a player as he is and wants to improve that player.
Yeah, it's a totally different approach. I mean, I think Deion Sanders loves his players and cares about them, but it's got to be his guys, right? I think Trent Dilfer is all about that relationship too, but let's put it this way. I think it's more conditional with Deion Sanders in the way he coaches.
Yeah.
Right? He's got a sign behind him in interviews that says, you play good, they pay good. Yeah. That's coming from the coach, too.
But there's also...
You go out there and you're a stud, then I'm going to love you.
With the player mentality...
And I'm going to do what I can for you.
And a player's coach is also with Dilfer, he wants a player to transfer out if he's going to make, more money in the final year, whenever, or if he's a sophomore, he's about to be a junior, and then he's going pro. But he's going to help his NFL makeup and his chances of being drafted higher. By all means, Dilfer says he's for that.
Yeah.
I've been thinking about the Washington State and Mountain West partnership.
Okay.
I think
that's not something I was expecting you to say you were thinking about.
I think it actually is a smart move to make. I realize it's their option, but even if they, from this standpoint, what is their path on the 12-team college football playoff makeup? What is their path to get into the college football playoff? It would be to be a part of that non-group of five.
Yeah, that is their path in the short term.
But
here's the problem with that. If I'm a program, I'm thinking, what is my path to this 50-team super conference that's inevitable?
Well,
and this isn't it.
But
they don't have any choice.
But
they're out.
Can you become a part of the 50-team if you're in the playoff and Oregon is not, for instance? The path to the playoff right now
absolutely not. I think performance on the field has nothing to do with what's coming. Unfortunately for Washington State, Hudson, you're right. This is a good route for them to get into a 12-team playoff. Maybe better than the Pac-12, but I don't think your on-field performance has anything to do with what's coming.
Well, the monetary aspect of the benefit of getting to that playoff game where you're splitting the revenue is massive, and they have a better. They should dominate. They should. I mean, they've got a chance to pull some upsets and be a part of the conversation for their conference this year, which is crazy to think about. Great play in the Pac-12, but think about the path and the route to the playoff in a 12-team for them versus Oregon in the Big Ten now, or the options that the 4-pack going to the Big 12 have, and the percentage chance of getting to the playoff for them versus Washington State. It's a move they have to make, but it's also a smart move if you're trying to stay afloat and not have a program losing money, which is the case for Cal's athletic program right now.
Yeah, I think it gives them a better current route to a college football playoff and winning conference championships. Obviously, it's going to be a step down in competition. I just don't think, and it's not their choice. Again, they're not choosing this.
Yeah,
but this is not their route to remain relevant in the NFL of college football, which is coming.
Meanwhile, this year, just landscape-wise, Big 12. Right now, it feels like it's Texas and Oklahoma playing for the Big 12 championship, which is odd in their final year. And in the final year of the entire conference of the Pac-12, you've got some amazing storylines, and that includes Washington State. And
Washington State, and Oregon State, who's been great.
The teams left.
Who would have thought that DJ Uiagalelei would leave Clemson and go to a more relevant program in Corvallis, Oregon?
I know.
Right now, they're the more relevant national program than Clemson for this season alone.
And proving that he's the better quarterback option than what they have.
And proving that it wasn't the quarterback that was the issue. That was the biggest issue at Clemson. It was more than just that. No, it's a fun season for that. I mean, the Pac-12 going out with a bang with the contenders in that conference. And I'm not going to completely bury the SEC yet simply because of Georgia and I think LSU also, a team that has already started to figure it out with the way they played in Starkville.
Something to begin to follow, though, and I was talking about this with Davey yesterday after the show. If we brought this up at any point prior to this season, it would be crazy. It would be you're doing a comedy skit, the Onion headline. We could potentially see a 2-loss SEC champion. And given what we may see of the other conferences, now some of this is scheduling, could a SEC champion be left out of the 14 playoff?
Possibly.
That has never happened. And we've never seen a 2-loss team get in.
Have we not?
No.
I feel like LSU won a national title with 2 losses. Now, this was the BCS national championship game.
No. I'm saying the playoff, the college football playoff.
Yeah, I'm saying LSU, though, got into when it was just 2 into the BCS in 2007, maybe.
But, Bama was
possible.
pissed off last year because they had 2 losses on the final play and they didn't get in. So, and the other aspect too is the Cincinnatis and the TCUs. Those storylines are not there other than Colorado. It's really about the Pac-12 and the quarterback play.
Yeah, LSU in 2007 was the first and only 2-loss national champion ever. They lost 2 games and then won the SEC title over Tennessee that year.
I was just referencing the playoff though. Like if you've got,
I don't think so in this year's
you could have a
SEC.
1-loss. You could have a 1-loss Ohio State or Michigan that wouldn't be in the Big Ten title game.
Yeah, they're getting in over the 2-loss SEC champion.
You could potentially have Washington, who would beat let's just say it's Washington and USC, hypothetically. They beat USC, but in the championship game, because it's the top 2 teams now, it's not the divisions, they lose to the team they've already won against, and both have 1 loss. Again,
I don't think so. I'm going to go ahead and answer.
Texas is available.
No.
Florida State.
14 playoff, no. SEC's out with 2 losses. SEC champion. I think there's just too many other teams that are only going to have 1 loss. And the SEC,
think about that, though.
For one season, the SEC loses that. It just means more moniker. I believe that.
I only bring that up.
They're not as good as these other conferences this year. That is not to say that they won't be the greatest again next year, right? Or every year after that. But for this year, I've seen enough to know Georgia is the shot and maybe LSU at getting into the playoff.
Right. And LSU's already got that one.
Every other team in this conference, Hutton, is week to week. They might do a great thing one week,
and it appears,
and the next week they could look terrible. I think every team is about that level.
But
good, not really good or great, but good.
At the end of the year, though,
enough.
we could see the SEC turn out to be just fine with Georgia, LSU, or whatever you want to put in there, because there's also the possibility and maybe the likelihood that the Pac-12 eats their own and they beat up on each other. There's Washington's schedule is brutal over the course of about 5 weeks, and it's that way for everyone based on how these teams are playing. And Penn State also plays a factor in the Big Ten. I should have mentioned them too, because, again, they get their crack at things for the first time too based on the landscape and the top-heavy stuff not being there.
I am rooting for a Pac-12 team to win it all. And I am rooting for that Pac-12 team to be the Washington Huskies. That is the team I want to see do it. I picked them to go to the playoff.
And you picked the Heisman
And I
winner.
want carnage on the end of this conference, dying, that in their last gasp for air, a Pac-12 team wins it all. That's what I want to see now.
Back at it for the Thursday edition, 3 to 6 Eastern. Hope you'll join us for Hot Mic with Hutton and Withrow across the OutKick Network.